Musa, Moro de Nebi. Nabala Musa, Moro de Nebi. Nabala Musa, Moro de Nebi. Gasuwa, muna figura matuma. Yamma. So Corora, La Cuba, Wala Tara, Donovan, Zanga, oh, Tinibinza, Taragoma Tapuro, Tiagang, Aba, Imanis, Nini, Titala Buma, Navala Musa, Moro de Nebi, Navala Musa, Moro de Nebi. Moro de Nebi. Nabala Musa, Moro de Nebi.
Jay, and welcome to the Gator Gates podcast. We're glad to be back with you guys this week for a very special episode. Before we get started, we'd like to acknowledge all of the forces of the non-material, all of the ancestors standing behind this great work, and all of the invisible powers standing behind this work. And before we get started, before we get into the episode, my name is Tatip Samahekwadamir. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm here with
Kajim inside Kebtah, one of your hosts. We're here today with a very special guest. We'll let him introduce himself.
I am Durrel Martin, an initiate here at the New Jersey Temple.
So, before we get into this, I'm just going to take the time to give a few disclaimers, right? Particularly the disclaimers that I'm about to give. I'm giving these disclaimers because I want to say, if you have not seen the movie known as Sinners, I suggest you turn this podcast off. Again, spoiler alert, if you have not seen the movie known as Sinners, I suggest you turn this off because we are about to go in. This episode is all about sinners. Everything that we're going to be talking about is centered around sinners in terms of this episode, as we will be doing a deep dive, an analysis, and a breakdown of the film Sinners. So again, if you have not seen the movie Sinners, I suggest you turn this off unless you don't have any plans to see it. Then at that point, I don't really care if you continue to watch this podcast or not, but I'm just giving this as a disclaimer before we go any further and dragging this spoiler alert as long as possible for everyone to understand that at this point, once we start talking about Sinners, if you haven't seen it, it will be spoiled for you.
Everybody's probably seen it at this point. It's done so well
I would
in the
hope
box
so.
office, hasn't it?
I would hope so.
like one of
If
the
people
number one
haven't
movies.
seen it, I would hope that you've gone out and you've seen it. If you have seen it, you're in for a treat. If you haven't seen it, you're in for a treat. But it depends on if you've seen it or not, and it depends on you and, like your preference in terms of how it goes. We also have Amma here with us, and her mic should be on, so she can chime in whenever. So let's jump right into it, right? Because we don't want to delay this any further than it's already been delayed, right? And on top of that, There's a lot to talk about in terms of sinners.
I mean, first off, I gotta say, like, it was a really good movie. It was an amazing movie, honestly, from my perspective. The film Black Panther was good in the sense that I feel like Black Panther was the first time I saw people from the diaspora begin to really, like, truly somewhat embrace or be curious about, like, their African roots. I mean, even though it's from the movie and it's fictional, but still it did a lot in terms of, like, connecting the dots and, you know, bridging gaps. But this film specifically, I feel it did a very good job at breaking down, dare I say, a condition that we face here in the Americas, and particularly with the idea of religion, because you know a lot of Christians now are fighting the movie, right? Did you know that? Yeah.
No, I didn't know. I could see why though, for sure. Because for me, I like the movie because it's very dynamic. Like at different times in the movie, I'm like, is it a musical? Is it towards the end? Is it an action film? So it was very dynamic, but it definitely spoke a lot to religion and a lot of the conditioning and how, like, things like music has been demonized. Because even like coming from Jamaica, like I know like the history of reggae and things like that. And music definitely, when you talk about people like Bob Marley, music definitely can educate people, even on cultural aspects, even if you're not from that place. So the movie highlights a lot of that. And a lot of the fight comes a lot of times from religion and things like that. So awesome movie. Like if anyone hasn't gone to see that movie, highly, highly recommended.
So not only do we highly recommend seeing the movie, we recommend seeing it a few times. Full disclosure, I've seen the movie multiple times.
I've only seen it once, but I should have seen it more than once, but I'm going to see it again after this, honestly.
Well, I mean, I made sure to see it even before we did this show multiple times because I wanted to make sure I really kind of had it down. Because each viewing, I picked up something different. I picked up different aspects and was able to break it down differently. So before we do anything, let's start from the top. So the beginning of the movie starts out, and it starts out with this voiceover and this montage of what is said, and this is here it goes. There are legends of people born with the gift of making music so true it can pierce the veil between life and death, conjuring spirits from the past and the future. In ancient Ireland, they were called Philly. In Choctaw land, they were called them firekeepers. And in West Africa, they're called griots. This gift can bring healing to their communities, but it also attracts evil. Then the movie goes to what we know as Sammy, right?
I got interested. Sammy is interesting. I want to get into it. Why? Even the name. What caught my attention with the movie was his name, because particularly Sammy is the preacher's son, right?
Yes.
And they call him Preacher Boy. So I want to get into that, but continue what you were saying.
So we come up on Sammy, who is a sharecropper in Mississippi, who is the son of a pastor. And we see him working in a sharecropping field, picking cotton. It's Mississippi. Oh, I'm sorry. No. We actually start out. The movie starts out with him driving up to a church with a huge scratch on his face and a bunch of blood on his clothes. And then he walks into a church, and the church literally starts out where when he walks in, his father is the pastor, and his father says, "My son has felt the call of sin, but the good Lord calls upon us to be fishers of men who sin and show them a way." And his son walks in with just the neck of a guitar that he's holding onto. And then he says to his son, he says, "Drop the guitar, Sammy." And the name of God put down the guitar. Let it go, Sammy. And then
That piece is amazing. Go on.
he said he doesn't do it, right?
He grips it even harder.
And then it says 1 day earlier. Now, for those of you that have not seen the movie, we're doing our best to include you so that you can follow along in terms of everything that we're doing. But, you know, it's going to be very, very difficult if you haven't seen the movie to follow the conversation in terms of where we're going to take it from here. Now, to put it in a nutshell, you have Sammy, who is the younger cousin of two twins. Okay? He's the younger cousin of two twins, and him being the younger cousin of two twins, their fathers are brothers. Okay? So their fathers being brothers, the two twins come back from Chicago to then to start a juke joint, or like a club, what's known as a club, in an old sawmill. They buy the sawmill from a man.
White man.
From a white man. They borrow the sawmill from the white man, a white man.
Yeah.
And then
Y'all
they
twins?
I know, right?
Nah.
That's gonna
Y'all
be sick.
cousins.
Yeah. Y'all twins?
That's my favorite part of the movie.
No, that's like one of the worst parts.
Two brothers.
That's why it's my favorite. Nah, we cousins.
Just obvious.
So they buy this sawmill from this white man, and they warn him, and they say, hey, if we see you or any of your Ku Klux Klan friends, and you come up here, we are going to kill you. Now, what's interesting is he doesn't say, I'm not the Ku Klux Klan. He says, the Klan don't exist no more. Okay? So that's the first red flag, right? So then fast forward.
What about that?
You see them go to different areas throughout the town, and they pick up their cousin who is in the church, right? So fast forward, Sammy's in the church, he's there talking to his dad. But when he walks into the church, what he sees is a guitar in the corner. And then he looks at his dad, and he looks at the guitar, and then his dad goes, I brought that in here. Mm-hmm. Okay? Because everyone knows that, you know, at the time, you don't bring certain instruments into the church. Okay?
Right.
So, whew, man, I love this movie, man.
To like,
So,
I gotta go see it again.
oh yeah, it's
yeah,
so
I'm gonna
good.
see it
It's
again,
so good.
definitely.
So, the movie in and of itself is about a few things, right? And it's about a few things because we start out, we see this gentleman, Sammy, whose father is in the church, and who his cousins are coming back from Chicago and are starting a juke joint. And essentially what happens is, in their juke joint, there is an evil that comes into that juke joint in the name of vampires. And those vampires show up. But those vampires in particular start out as two white men and one white woman.
Right.
And the main vampire being an Irish vampire. Now, this is important.
Do you remember when he was being chased?
He was being chased, right?
That's an interesting piece too.
We haven't
Because
talked
in
about
your
that.
intro,
Well, we're
you-
going to talk about it all.
Yeah.
So
Who was
it's
chasing him?
We're just trying, because the problem is like we got to think about it like, okay, you know what? Fuck that. And fuck these people. If you haven't seen the movie, then fuck you. All right, starting it from the
Go
top.
see it.
Yeah, start from the top, right? Like fuck this and fuck
Nah.
trying to talk to people and explain it to them.
Okay, since we're just
right?
going straight into it,
Let's
right?
just go into it.
Like that whole scene in the beginning where Sammy enters the church and his father is saying, you know, put down the guitar, put down the guitar. I don't think, if you don't understand how powerful that scene is, because what that scene really represented was the fact that, all right, let me take it back. His father is the preacher. If you don't know, back in the days during slavery, sharecropping times, colonial powers would purposely put somebody who looked like you in the fields to preach the good word to you. Why? because during those times they needed a way to keep certain people docile. So religion was given as an engine to drive you to do the work. Why? Because the whole idea and the concept of slavery meant that you had to be taken away from your culture, meant you had to be taken away from your lands. The reason why that scene in particular is so powerful is because as we come here to the Caribbean, to the Americas, we've lost a lot, culturally speaking, because our culture was taken away and it was ripped away, and then we were given something else in replacement to it, i.e. being religion. Now, Sammy's father would be one of those people that they would employ to now teach this religion to the plantation.
I think they call those overseers.
Yeah, no, not the overseer, but he would be I don't remember what name they call them, but the overseer would employ black preachers. Right. They would teach those people to read specifically because they weren't allowed to read. But those specific people were handpicked to learn to read, so they could learn to read the Bible, to teach the Bible to the other slaves. Correct. So what made that scene so powerful was because the guitar, since we're already, Keep's already mentioned it, the Sammy is the cousin of the twins.
Right.
Which is the father of the preacher. The preacher and the twins' father are brothers. Correct. Mm-hmm. In the end, where Smoke was telling Sammy, before Smoke told Sammy that the guitar was actually, don't go there yet.
Too soon?
We have to. We have to. Because that scene is so powerful, bro. We can't go into it without talking about that.
I know we're gonna go there. We're gonna go there. But like, let's start from the top.
Let me cut that out.
Let's start from the top, okay? So the beginning scene is obviously setting the scene, and what it's doing is it's setting the scene in that we're going to now talk about what we know in Merita as musicians, right? That have spiritual predispositions, or you might call them like spiritual abilities. You might call them,
gifts.
Gifts. You might call them abilities, you name it, to pierce into
clairvoyance,
third eye. What else? You name it. All of the fucking clair, whatever.
Yeah. Clear audio,
all of that stuff, right?
Hear beyond.
Mm-hmm.
So they are using those things, as they say it, to heal. Mm-hmm. Okay, they're healers. All right. So after that, we now get introduced to what is considered one of those people living in America in Mississippi in 1916. Okay. He's living in America in 1916, and he is the son of a pastor, all right? And then he has his two cousins.
And his name is Sam.
His name is Sam.
That's the important part.
We're coming back.
That's the important part. I'm not going to go into what I was going to go into.
We're going to go into
catch that name, Sam.
We're going to go into the whole Bible names. Because then we also need you to break down Elijah and Elias. Because of the twins, right? Because both of their names, one of their names is Elijah and one of their names is Elias, right?
You know I didn't catch that.
I'm telling you, son,
I caught it.
I fucking caught it.
Like I gotta go watch this three times.
I caught it. I caught it.
I didn't catch that. I really didn't catch that.
I'm telling you, watching it 3 times, bro, I caught it. Like it was this time that I was like, oh shit, I missed that. Anyway, so now they go into different areas of town, okay? And they go into different areas of town, and they're setting up for their opening of their juke joint, okay? Mm-hmm. So in the opening of their juke joint, they go to see this Chinese dude that they know, right? This Chinese man who's married to a Chinese woman and has a Chinese daughter in Mississippi. And they own a convenience store. Okay? Really? They own So they go into this. They go in. He goes into this convenience store. The twins split up, and then the other twin, by the name of Stack, goes to see a musician by the name of Delta Slim. Mm-hmm. And they're recruiting Delta Slim to come sing at their juke joint. And it's Delta Slim and it's Sammy, right? Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, Delta Slim, Sammy, and Stack. And then Smoke goes to see the Chinese people to go recruit them to come in. Okay. So then, while Stack and Sammy are going to see Delta Slim to recruit him, they then run into Stack's ex-girlfriend.
That was
By the name of Mary.
we gotta talk about
Okay, by the name of Mary. Listen,
That's quite powerful.
we're getting, guys, we're getting there. We're getting there. We're just trying to set the scene, right? And then Smoke then goes to see his former lover, former flame, and then also drop off flowers at his like baby that died either in birth. We're not really told. The baby either dies in birth, but the baby isn't born, okay? So the baby dies to some extent. So then he then drops flowers off at the grave and then sees his former flame by the name of Annie, okay? Now, then fast forward to them going to pick up another friend, right? And then they pick up another friend by the name of Cornbread. And then after that, then we see the first vampire. He's an Irish vampire by the name of Remick, okay? And we see him being chased by the Choctaw.
Yes.
By the Choctaw, the original indigenous to the land in America.
He was
within
charred.
Mississippi, and he's running away because the sun is still up. So he's running away from them, and they're hunting him, and they're going to kill him. He comes across two white people. He knocks on the door. It's a couple. It's a white woman and a white man.
Right.
And then he sees them, and then he says, like, hey, I'm being chased by some Indians, and, like, they killed my wife, and I need help.
Ain't no
and all this
Indians
stuff.
around here for miles.
And he's like, you sure it just want some light-skinned niggers? So then they go into...
They let him in.
No, he sees they have a Ku Klux Klan outfit.
Oh, yes. There's a
hanging
Klan
out,
outfit
right?
in the background.
So he sees the
Yes.
Klan outfit in the background.
The hood.
And then after he sees the Klan outfit in the background, then he says, oh, yeah, they, what do you call it? He's like, then he says some, like, racist shit. And then they're like, okay, yeah. So they let him in. Then the Indians show up. And then the Choctaw show up. And then when the Choctaw show up, they're like, hey, we're chasing a very dangerous thing.
Have you
seen him? And God forbid you let him in your house.
He's not what he seems.
And he's not what he seems. And if you let him
in.
in your house, then God be with you. But then at that point, it's too late.
And they're
She's like, yeah, fuck you.
And they're like, let's get
And then
out
they're
of
like,
here.
all right, sun's going down. Let's get the fuck out of here, right? So then they leave. And then what happens is the, what do you call it? The juke joint is opened, okay?
Right.
So the juke joint is going, you know, so on and so forth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
He also recruited his ex to come and cook.
Yeah, he recruited Annie to come and cook, right?
Yeah.
So Annie comes. So all of these people that we mentioned are at the juke joint. Everyone that he goes to talk to and recruit comes to the juke joint. So they're there at the juke joint. And then while they're there at the juke joint, then eventually the vampires show up, okay? So the vampires show up and they want to be invited in because obviously, as you know, one of the aspects of vampire folklore is you have to be invited.
You can't just come in.
Yeah.
You can't just come in, okay? So
interesting.
that's
But
very
we'll-
interesting.
We'll get into it.
It's kind of like you buy your own death kind of thing, but you'll talk about it.
Yeah, I mean we're gonna break it down. We're just trying to give an overview of the movie, and then once we give an overview of the movie, then we're gonna go
I
into
think
every
the
aspect.
people already know the overview. Just get into it. Y'all
Okay, get into
stop
it.
being so shy about it. That
All
movie
right.
was
Can I
crazy.
go back to the guitar then? because bro, that scene is crazy, bro.
Okay, hold on. All right, because I'm trying to set it up so that we have the talking points, so that then we can then.
I set it up.
Like,
set
so that we
me
can
up.
go, right?
Set me up.
Set it up,
So-
because you've obviously
Sammy-
been paying attention.
After
He saw it 3 times.
Yeah, I saw it 3 times. So Delta Slim is singing, you know, he's entertaining entertaining them.
On the
Smoke
piano.
and Stack are having some conflict because people are paying with plantation money as opposed to U.S. dollars. So then there's some there's some antagonism between the two of them, because what's happening is the fact that like Smoke is more of the businessman, Stack is more of like the the people person.
He's
So-
social.
He's more social.
Yeah.
He's more more accepting. And then so eventually what happens is they bring Sammy on stage. And when they bring Sammy on stage, Sammy starts singing. So what Sammy does is when Sammy starts singing, you realize that Sammy is one of those people that they're talking about in the beginning of the movie. People that have the ability to rip open the dimensions between time and space. And so what you see what Sammy would have been back in Africa, meaning West Africa.
Right.
In terms of a griot, it's an old man playing a kora. And then you see what he would look like if he was in modern times or the 70s in terms of a bass player, in terms of like a Bootsy Collins types musician. And then you also see what he would look like in terms of being a hip hop
DJ.
DJ, okay?
Like
And so
vinyls, then CDs.
vinyl,
then now it's
CDs, you name it. And then you also see then everyone that's present in terms of having an indigenous connection
Right.
or having a cultural connection, their ancestors.
Right.
You see the Chinese, you see the Chinese lady and the Chinese man, you see his ancestors in terms of the traditional dancing. And then you also see the African dancers, okay?
Right.
Now, these are all important.
Yes. And all of those are happening at different
It's all happening at the
times.
same time.
Because this is a timepiece. Because I think that's great that he was able to mix that. It's almost like a blend. Like, that was so skillful how he did that. Because it's like one of the first times I've ever seen somebody mix something from different time periods and not look ridiculous. That was like magical. And don't forget like the fire. So once he started, and don't forget the guitar, the music, and the dancing, because dancing always follows music, and that has its own sort of spiritual significance as well.
Because you also see the women that dance for the deities are considered deity dancers back in West Africa. And then you also even see the people that wear the masks. And then the deity comes and possesses them, and then they dance, and then they're able to do the quick shuffling with the feet, the very, very quick shuffling, right? So who comes to see that, or who happens to perceive that in the nighttime are the vampires. So the vampires see that, and then they're like, okay, we're going to go.
Bro, so
We're gonna
there's
go
so
get
much-
this.
There's so much to.
There's so much. There's so much. There's so much to go
Because
to.
in that scene alone, there is so much. Because remember, when he started playing, the dimensions of even the building, the physical dimensions,
You don't see
they
them
were
anymore.
surrounded by fire. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what? Well, I know fire is like purification and other things that I don't even know about yet. So I'm like, what
So-
is happening?
At this
He's
point,
breaking the barriers.
Yeah.
He's literally breaking the barriers of what you can perceive as something as physical. He's tapping into the non-material and then bringing everything from the non-material into the physical reality at that moment. Like that, bro, can we just bust it open?
The
movie was genius.
It was
The
harmonious.
movie was
bro,
genius,
like-
bro.
the movie,
It's
the
genius.
movie is genius on so many different levels.
You
Now,
can't even categorize it as any genre.
no,
like,
you
it's
can't.
just
You can't.
It's
'Cause
genius.
So
it's a blend.
hold on.
Very
Okay.
dynamic.
All right. So
Like, you know, I saw people who were commenting. No, hear me out. 'Cause before you continue, right? Like there was a girl that I used to talk to, whatever, and she had made a comment, and she was like, I saw the movie and I don't get what people are talking about. And it was like whatever. And I couldn't help but comment. I was like, you didn't get it. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you just missed it. I understand if you were just looking at the movie for, oh, you want to see acting and action and more like vampire dialogue and shit. You think it's just a regular vampire movie? Like, she even said, oh, it was giving me Twilight vibes. I'm like, you completely missed
Man,
everything. And this is what I'm saying. Like,
so much symbolism, and when they came to get what Sammy has.
Well, let's go back to wait, no. I think these moments are necessary, though. Let's have these moments. Kaja Dreamer just brought up a great point, because this is like what you call gender bending, like in the biggest
Genre.
I said
Genre.
gender.
You're gender
Wow, let
bending.
me take these
No,
headphones
no
off.
trans shit.
Genre
we
bending.
don't
That's
deal with
the
that
only
mental illness stuff.
type of shift we really looking at, because depending on which genre you're watching this movie from, kind of like exposes where you're at mentally, right? Because if you can only see it as, oh, it's a scary movie, if you're not able to pierce the other genres that this film is inciting you to kind of open your mind to meditate on or just to question, then already there's like a block in your mind, right? But what I love about this movie is those who are able to break those points and see and pierce the movie for all the different layers, that conversation is brewing. And those people who are like, I don't get it, they're now forced to have to question and actually seek to understand what people are talking about. Not a lot of movies do that. A lot of movies, you can literally stay on the lower level and only like a few amount of people are piercing. But with this movie, there's so much, and it's done in like an eloquent way. It's not like maximalist and there's too much everywhere all at once like that other movie, which is still good, but we're talking about this movie. It's like this one was so clean and clear, simple but complex, and you can tell it was by just even how we're talking about it. We're like so odd about it, it's hard to even like go into the nitty gritty, you know. But that was a great point, like that girl talking about, it's not that scary. You know, there's some people talking about this movie on other podcasts, and they're only talking about it as in black versus white, which is crazy.
no, that they miss it.
They
That's what you
miss
get.
it.
You miss it.
Right at that juncture, they miss it.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that the main vampire,
It's
perfect
quote
segue.
unquote white.
the main vampire is white, and he's Irish. We're gonna log that for later. He's Irish, right? So now the vampires come and they want to be let in, and the vampires aren't able to be let in, right? Now the former flame, the former lover of Stack is a biracial woman, okay? She can pass as white.
Yes.
Okay.
She's passing.
She's passing.
What they call red
She's
bone?
passing as white, right?
Nah, she's beyond red bone.
She don't want to pass though.
She's straight up.
She don't want to pass. She wants to be with the niggas.
Yeah.
Wasn't she even married to? She's like.
She's married to a white man in Arkansas, and that's why he's saying he's like go back to Arkansas, go back to Arkansas.
But that's the funny thing.
So-
Damn, I don't. Nah, I'm gonna give it away.
No, we're gonna
going,
give it away.
keep
We're
going.
gonna give it away.
Can I give it away?
Well, hold on. No, we're going to give it away.
Yeah,
but we
people
just
watching.
we have to kind of go through the movie, and then once we go through the movie, then we're gonna go back and we're gonna talk about every aspect, right? So after that, then she's like, "Hey, I know people are playing. I know people are paying with plantation money." She's like, "Let me go check out those white people." Okay,
Yeah. They turn
because
away.
they come, they try and get in, and they get turned away. Because we're still talking about 1916, so there's still segregation.
Just to give context, I
Yeah.
think we jumped ahead a little bit.
Right.
The vampires came and then they turned the vampires away, right?
Yeah, the vampires came, they turned them away, and the vampires are like, "Oh, we heard like great music, like like we
wanna party
heard like
too.
we want to
Yeah,
party
yeah,
too.
yeah.
We want to be down.
We wanna be down.
We want to be down." And they're
We
like,
wanna
"No, get the
join."
fuck out of here."
Right.
Our money
wanna
is
be
good.
They're like, "Our money is good."
It's like, oh, you're not letting me in because of
Yeah,
this.
'cause of this.
Because of this.
'Cause
No,
of
no,
white kid.
our money is money,
Yeah,
bro.
money
And then
is
she
money.
used
Just let us.
her speech to communicate that she black. Her language, that was key.
I was trying to blow it off the phone and then it blew off.
Yeah, it's
Whatever.
fine, it's
So, anyway, they get turned away, and then she's like, "Okay, you know what? Let me go check out the white people. Like they'll reveal it to me, right?" So she goes,
Because
and
I look
then-
like them.
Because I look like them. So she goes, and then they're like, "Yeah, we know you came." Well, they're like, "Hey, just."
There's no rules for how to talk
I know.
about
I'm
this.
laughing because I just saw they said there's no rules for how you talk about this. We were just sharing. So then she goes and she sees him, and then they're like, yeah, you know, we know that you're in, money won't do you any good because you're in deep pain and you're looking for fellowship and love.
That's what the vampire said.
That's what the vampires
Saying
say.
to
They're
the
like, to the white
past
lady,
girl.
to Mary.
Mary.
So they say to Mary, they're like, you're looking for fellowship and love.
Mary.
That
Of
hit.
all the
That
names.
hit. Because if
So,
you understand,
if you understand what
if you
that is.
understand the history of biracial kids in America,
Looking for acceptance.
looking for acceptance, because you know why? They are not on any side. So they have to be in between. That's why she was able to be the one to say, hey, let me go and talk to those people. Let me see what they're about so they can come in here. So I don't feel too left out. I feel at home here, but I also don't because I'm still a little different.
Right.
Let me go actually go out to those people. They look like me a little bit so I can connect. It's crazy, bro. The movie is genius how they incorporate all of this, bro.
It's really good because she
so-
can move between.
She can move between
She
both
can move
worlds.
between,
Yeah.
right?
And that's
So then-
exactly how they operated too.
And that's but that's how they
Exactly.
infiltrated. How they
Goddamn.
got into the place. And how they infiltrated. And how they got into the place
Let's go
was
there.
through her. But the interesting thing is they say to her, the main vampire says to her, he says, you need saving. And she goes, I don't need saving. And then she tries to go back inside, but then at that point, the vampire then turns her into a vampire. She goes back, and then they let her in because they know she's a part of the community. So they let her into the thing, and then
that big fat useless
She-
security
yeah.
guard.
Oh,
cornbread, just like me.
Cornbread.
All right, well, come on in then.
So
like, weren't you just here? What
So,
are you talking about? Come on,
he lets
let me in.
Cornbread, the doorman, lets Mary in. Mary comes in, and then she
Cornbread.
turns Stack. She starts feeding off a Stack, right? So once they enter into the room and find out that Mary is feeding off a Stack and turning him into a vampire, then Smoke, the twin, shoots Mary. And then Mary gets up after being shot, and then she's like, we gonna kill every last one of y'all.
And ran out.
And then runs out. And then, what's her, was it Anna?
Annie.
And
Annie comes in, and then she's like, that ain't no, you shot her? And she got up and ran away? That's a Haith.
And she's like, remember she said, yo, we gotta get the body out of here.
We gotta
he
get the
didn't,
body
he didn't
outta
want to
here.
get. He didn't
But
want to
then
do that.
Stack was like, Smoke was like, don't touch him, leave him. So then they lock him in lock him in the room. Lock him in the room.
He's
I know
attached-
Roscoe's like,
attached
sounds
to
like a party.
His dead
Yeah.
brother.
So then they lock him in the room, and then they leave, and then they're waiting out there. And then Cornbread, who just went out to pee, gets turned by the vampires and comes back. And then Cornbread's like, y'all gonna let me in? And then they're like, no, we're not gonna let you.
You
They're
been
like,
here all
yeah,
day.
You been here all day.
Why we gotta invite you
why
in?
you gotta get invited in? And then Cornbread is like, like, we shouldn't be doing this. You know what we're supposed to be doing. And Delta Slim is like, what are we supposed to be doing? Right? So then he's like, we're supposed to be getting along and looking for fellowship and love and, equality and all of these things.
Everybody looking at it like, what
Yeah,
in
they
the
pay attention
world
to those
happened to this
words.
fool?
Pay attention to the love.
Because the fact that
Yeah.
he's turned into a vampire and that's the words he's using. Oh my god! Again,
So-
genius.
Genius. So then
The dialogue.
at that
Gotta pay
point,
attention to it.
Cornbread pulls, because Smoke puts his hand out the room, to pay him, to give him his money.
He said, let me get my money
Cornbread
then.
pulls him out. He shoots Cornbread in the face, and then Annie grabs Smoke, and then pulls him back in, right? So he grabs Smoke and pulls him back in, and then that's when they're like, oh,
This ain't
these
no-
may not be no hates. Might be something else, right? So
They're worse.
Annie is their resident African spiritual person, okay? So because she does divinations, and then she also gives Smoke a spiritual protection, a juju, a mojo. She gives him a spiritual protection, right?
In the South, they call it roots. Roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what they call it, roots.
So then, after that, Stack
Interesting that they chose the word roots.
Stack then
Yeah.
Stack comes back to life as a vampire, starts knocking on the door. And then he eventually breaks out. And then when he breaks out, Annie comes and then spills some pickled garlic water on him. Now that's important. Remember, we didn't say holy water. We said pickled garlic water. Okay? So then at this point, you then cut to outside where all of the vampires are having a fucking sing-along while Remick, the Irish vampire, is singing a song from his past,
Folk.
an Irish folk song, and then they're all dancing around him and having like a whatever you call it, like a gathering.
So it's almost like you didn't let us inside.
We're gonna have it out here.
We're doing our own out here.
We're doing it out here,
And we're going to make sure you see it.
we're gonna make sure you see it.
Yeah, because they were loud too.
They were loud. They were singing and they were having their thing, right? And they're all like, it's like, it's like they're having their juke joint outside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everybody that
with his
left.
traditional
Everyone
dance.
that's been turned into a vampire.
Everybody that left, because remember, people after they shot,
They kick them out. They kick everyone out. They're like,
they
party's
kicked
over. Everybody.
everybody.
go.
Everybody went about their business, but they got caught by the vampires, obviously. So people, imagine this: you have a group of people who are in a place surrounded by people who are just like them, who are functioning in the same way they function, doing the same things they do, and then leave, and then they go out to where, let's call the vampire, the system, is, and then they get hold by the system, and then they change.
Right.
Now they're outside, and they're trying to get
Infiltrate.
everybody else who's not a part of their system now to now join them. Just think about that. Again, the movie is genius.
So
Goddamn genius.
Lots of symbolism.
So then, now what happens is the Chinese lady sends out her husband to go start the car.
Stupid movie.
She's like, go start the
Yeah,
got
that was-
get
that
out
was
of here,
a-
right?
that was
This ain't
a
got
dumb
nothing to do with us. Go start the car.
You gotta talk about the Chinese in this movie. I'm
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
Chinese man goes, right?
genius what he did.
So then they find a guy that's like passed out on the floor and looks like he's in a pool of blood, and then they're like, hey, they throw out his body because they're
Right,
like,
it's like, we're not
there's
taking any
we're not taking
chances.
any chances. So then they throw out his body, and then Cornbread notices him while the Irish jig is going on. He notices him, and then he comes and he starts feeding on him because he knows he's not a vampire, and he knows he's fresh meat to be eaten.
And then
And
there was
the-
the other guy with the scar who came too. Remember? There was a guy who they weren't letting in because they thought he was a
Yeah,
vampire.
that's the guy.
That was him.
That's the guy they throw out
After he
that is
turned.
in the pool of blood.
Cornbread
the guy with
fed
the
No,
up.
there was another guy who came back and was knocking on the door.
Yeah, bro, that's the guy that they found in the pool of blood and they threw out because they were like, we're not taking any chances.
Yes. But he was just knocked out. For
He was just
whatever.
knocked out.
Oh,
on
he
the floor.
woke up and,
then he woke up and he was like, hey,
Yeah,
let me in,
I'm
let me in.
remembering it wrong.
Yeah,
Okay,
he's
okay.
like, some weird shit going on here. Smoke, let me in, let me in, let me in.
And they're like
He's
inside like,
yeah, and they're like,
negative,
oh,
not
they're like,
happening.
nah. So then they rush to the door and they open it. Cornbread comes, tackles him, and starts eating him, like sucking on his blood. And then they have the door open, and while they have the door open, then the Chinese husband comes, and he's like, "Hey, come on," to the wife, and the wife is like, "But look, he's killing him right there." He's like, "Oh no, that's nothing. You ain't gotta worry about that." And then,
cool,
and then
that's
she's
cool.
like, "But," and then at this point, now, the Irish vampire comes, and then he's like, "Okay," he's like, "I'm your salvation." He's like, I am your way out.
It's why Jesus.
They will never let you. They will never let you be free. They will never let you prosper in this society.
And
This is where
who sold
real
them the
freedom
juke
is.
joint?
Right?
Who sold them the juke
And
joint?
then he's like, and then he's like, you see these two white people right here? These are this is the nephew of the man who sold you this sawmill. And the uncle is the grand wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and they're coming here in the morning to kill everyone.
This ain't no juke joint.
And he's
This
like,
is a
ain't no-
slaughterhouse.
It's exactly. This ain't no juke joint. It's a slaughterhouse. Because the thing is once the vampires then turn into a vampire, once anyone has been turned into a vampire, they all have access to each other's memories. So then Stack starts talking to Smoke. He walks up, and then he's like, you know what? He's like, he's not lying. And he's like, and you thought we could be free, but we will never be free. And then they're like, no, fuck that. They close the door, okay? And then before they close...
That's a bar, by the way. That's a message.
Right before... Oh, yeah.
That's a message.
And then right before they
Big
close
message.
the door, he says, the Irish vampire says to the Chinese lady, we're going to go get your daughter. Right? And then he's like, he's like, and then if you guys all join us, the next thing we're going to go do is we're going to go get the Ku Klux Klan, and we're going to turn them into vampires too. Because even Annie says to them, she's like, why don't y'all just leave? And then Mary, who's a vampire, says, we're not leaving without y'all. Okay? So then eventually the Chinese lady loses it, and then she's like, come on in, you motherfuckers. And they all come in. But before they come in, and I forgot this, and this is the most important part, is Remick, the Irish vampire, says to all of them, give us Sammy.
Yes.
If you give us Sammy, we will let all of you live. And he says, Sammy.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just want Sammy, because if you give me Sammy, you have the ability to help me see the people that I want to see again and I can't see. Because you have the ability to open up the dimensions between time and space.
Whoa.
And then they're like, nah, Delta Slim is like, nah, we're not letting you have Sammy. He's one of us. Now, eventually when the Chinese lady's like, hey, you know what? Everybody come in, like all you motherfuckers come in. Then they come in and a big battle starts. And then they turn Annie. They end up getting Annie, but then they end up...
Yeah.
Smoke made a promise to Annie that he was going to kill her if she got turned into a vampire.
Yeah.
So he kills her, and then all the vampires leave because they're like, fuck. And then Delta Slim sacrifices himself.
It's better to die than to live a life on your knees as a slave.
And it's better to
That's
die.
what that scene was.
Sometimes
Yeah.
it's better to die as what you are than become something that
Other.
goes against what you are.
That's why a lot of our
Bars.
ancestors, before they reached the Caribbean, before they reached the States,
They jumped off.
ship.
Word to another Ryan
Message.
Coogler film with written by Ryan Coogler, Black Panther, with what's the villain's name?
Killmonger?
Killmonger. And Killmonger says, bury me with my ancestors that jumped off the boat and died in the sea because they would prefer that over becoming enslaved. So they end up killing, Smoke kills Annie. And then after he kills Annie, then they go upstairs after Delta Slim sacrifices himself. And then after the
Shout out to
vampires
Slim.
all kill, I know, shout out to Slim. After the vampires all kill Delta Slim, then they Delta Slim right before they all go upstairs, Delta Slim says to Sammy, here, take the guitar and remember what I told you. Now, during the montage where Sammy is opening up the dimensions between time and space, and you see all of the ancestors come in.
I was gonna
right?
remind you about that part.
When he does that, Delta Slim is telling him, he says, now, music as you know it, blues music as you know it, is something we brought from back home. It wasn't forced on us like the religion.
Yes.
Okay? It's not from them. This is ours. This is
coming
from
from the
something back home.
motherland.
It's coming from the motherland. So then, right before they all go upstairs, he gives Sammy the guitar. He's like, take the guitar. Remember what I told you. They go upstairs. Then Remick and Stack then attack Smoke and Sammy. Okay? So then Smoke is fighting Stack. And then Sammy is running away from Remick. And then while Smoke is fighting Stack, Stack is trying to turn Smoke into a vampire. But he can't.
Yes.
Because of the spiritual protections
Yes. And you can
that Annie gave Smoke.
Yes.
Okay,
Like
so Stack is trying to turn him, but he can't bite him.
Yes.
Even if you notice, Remick tries to turn him, but Remick can't bite him either because of the spiritual protection,
I
because of the
noticed
Muji, the Muju. I'm sorry, the Mojo. So then Sammy jumps out and then runs, and then Smoke is like, just make it to the sunrise. So then Sammy's in the water with the guitar, and he's running away from Remick. And then right before Remick is about to turn him, he starts saying, Hail Mary, right? Or
Sammy.
hallowed be my name.
Right,
Sammy.
What does he call it? The
Sammy starts
Father
saying
prayer?
I don't even know the name of the prayer, but he
don't
just
know the prayer.
he starts reciting
But he starts
Christian
reciting
prayers.
Christianity. He starts
Christian prayer.
He starts
yeah.
reciting a Christian prayer, and then Remick says, "Oh, I know this," and he goes, "These are the same words the men."
he starts reciting.
He starts reciting
with
it too.
him.
He starts
Yes.
reciting it
With him.
And he starts reciting it with him, right?
Bro, how powerful that scene is.
He starts
That
reciting.
scene was
like-
crazy.
Like, oh, I know this. We can resonate.
That
So let's
scene
do
was
this. then.
crazy.
They
Hold
said
on,
it
guys,
line
guys,
for
hold on,
line
hold
in
on.
harmony.
So then he says it in harmony with. He says it
With
in
Sammy.
harmony with Sammy, and then he starts dunking Sammy in the water.
like,
and
I
he
can
starts,
baptize you,
he
nigga. I can
starts
bless you too.
baptizing Sammy, and he goes, "Those men that said those words to my father before they took his lands, they said these words to us, and they bring me comfort too." And then he then proceeds to say those men were liars because they talked about a God and a devil and a dominion over beasts and man and blah blah blah. And he's like, but that isn't real, right? And then
This is why Christians are complaining and
But listen,
hating
but
this
right
movie.
before he's about to turn him,
Man.
right before he's about to turn him, he hits him with the guitar, and then it gives just enough of a moment where then Smoke comes and then stabs Remick through the heart.
Remember before that, before even all of that happened, Smoke was trying to convince Sammy to get the hell out of here.
Yes.
Yep.
He was trying to tell Sammy to leave.
We're gonna do it all. We're gonna do it all. We're just trying to get through. We're just trying to get through a recap of the
It's
movie.
all right, Cottage Dream.
Yeah.
I'm holding back myself.
listen,
Let me say this.
We're
Let me
just
say
giving
this.
a
recap.
Just let me say this. Let me say this because we already passed this part, right? In that part, before all this happened, when Smoke was telling Sammy to leave, he was also telling him, "Look, the guitar you have actually belonged to our father."
No, bro. That's early.
That's not
early.
Cottage Dream.
No, it doesn't come yet. It doesn't come yet. It doesn't come yet. That's at the end.
So
That's
you're
right.
talking about the part
Yeah.
where first Stack told him,
All right.
"You got that guitar.
Guys.
We got it. Wait. I wanted to mention the first part.
Let him do the montage.
I
No,
got it.
I just
got it.
wanted to mention the first
Guys,
part.
I
to
know.
give
Let him
him
do the
the
montage.
I know how it goes, guys. Let me just say it.
He saw it 3 times.
Let me just say it.
I've only seen it once.
So just hold on, guys. Once we get through it, then we're gonna touch on all of it, okay? So then after that, then he says to him, and he's like, he stabs him through the heart, and then after he stabs him through the heart, then he's like, listen, he's like, Sammy, be strong, get out of here, okay? So he's like, be strong, get out of here, all right? So then he's like, after he tells him, be strong, get out of here, then he says, let go of the guitar. And Sammy goes, I can't. He goes, y'all got it from Charlie Patton. Yeah. And he goes, who told you that? And he says, y'all got it from Charlie. He said, Stack told me that. And he goes, he's lying to you.
Fool.
That's my daddy's guitar that you have. And then he's like, okay. And then he leaves because Smoke is like, I got to handle some business. Smoke is there. And then he rips off his mojo. He's there by himself. He rips off the mojo. He goes and gets some. He goes and gets his trunk of
Let me
guns.
just add the piece where the sun comes up and
Yeah, the sun came. I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. The sun came up
'cause
and
that's
then
what
got rid of all the vampires. Yes, after
That's
he
how
stabs.
Sammy and
Yes, after he stabs Remick, the sun comes up and then kills all the other vampires.
Yeah, 'cause
the
that's
thing is,
really key.
And the most important part about that
Let
is
there
the
be
fact
light.
that the other vampires start coming and reciting the Christian prayer.
Yes.
And they come over like a bunch of zombies, and they're there watching as he's about to turn Sammy.
And that's how we all look. I'm sorry.
I wanted to
That's how
add
we
this
all be
too.
looking.
There were many times that they were stabbed and they didn't die. Like there were times where people would stab the vampires, nothing happened.
Yeah, but you got to stab them in the
Yeah,
heart
I mean,
directly.
Yeah, true, but I'm saying that like that was happening until the sun
Guys,
came, and
give me
because the sun
2
came
minutes.
out, I was
2 minutes. 2 minutes. I'm about to finish it.
All right,
2
finish.
minutes.
All right, finish.
2 minutes. Okay.
Finish.
So then, Smoke ends up having a shootout with all of the Ku Klux Klan members that come back, all of the racist white men that
Yes.
come back, and then while he has a shootout and he kills them all, he gets shot. And then as he's about to then kill the last white man, who's the one that sold them the sawmill,
Amazing scene.
right?
Yeah.
And as he's about to kill him, then the white man, right before he dies,
You say,
I got money.
Smoke starts having a moment where he's now in between life and death, and then he sees Annie with their baby, and then he's like deciding
all white.
And she's
in
in
all
white.
She's in
All
all
white.
white. She's in all white. And then he's like looking at them and he's about to go. And then the white man says, I have money. He shoots him. He kills him. He sprays that nigga with a bunch of fucking bullets. And then after he shoots him, then you go now to Sammy, who goes to the church. And then when Sammy's at the church, and then he walks in the beginning, like in the beginning of the film.
Let me loose.
He interrupts the sermon being done by his father, and then his father says, let go of the guitar, let go of the guitar. And Sammy says, no. He leaves, he gets in the truck, and he drives away. The movie ends.
Did he say no? I didn't hear.
Oh, he doesn't say no, right?
Yeah,
No, but
he just
He doesn't say no.
He doesn't say no. He
But
doesn't
he
say no.
doesn't drop
But
it.
he doesn't drop it.
He leaves
gets,
with it.
He
Yeah.
gets in the car. He drives away. Then the movie ends. Then when the movie ends, then you see Sammy in present day 1992. Okay, and then he's told by the bodyguard, by the doorman, hey, there's just two people want to come in and they want to have a drink. You want to let them in? He's like, it's not a problem. The doorman says, y'all can come in. And then the two people that come in are Mary and Stack. In 1992, the same age when you saw them last, okay? Then they have a conversation. And then once Sammy realizes it's Stack, Stack says to him, he goes, I miss the reel. All those recordings of the reel, of the music back then, sound like dog shit. He goes, Sammy, you still real? And then Sammy plays him a little jig.
Yeah.
And then Stack and Mary are getting up to leave. And then Sammy says to Stack, he says, you know, that night, that day, before that night, every night I wake up, sometimes every now and then I wake up paralyzed. He said, that day, before that night, was the best day of my life. And Stack says,
He
it
got
was
some cutty that
mine
night.
too. It was mine too. And then he says, I remember that was the last time I saw the sun. He said, me and my brother.
Last time I saw my brother.
The last time I saw my brother, he said, but he said, the thing is we thought we would be free. End of movie. Okay?
God damn it.
Now,
Drop the mic.
now, let's take it from the top, and now let's fucking break it down.
Bro, going back again. Sammy. First off, the fact that he used Bible names in that way was genius to me. You know why? Because Sam, a lot of people don't know this, the name Sam or Samuel is the name of the devil. The devil's name is Sammy.
But listen.
The devil's name is Samael. Sammy, Sam, son of Sam is the devil.
Okay, now,
Really?
Yes.
In the Bible.
Going
Yes.
off of the Bible.
Samael.
Going off of the Bible stuff, right? Going to the beginning of the movie.
Didn't know that.
Now the interesting thing is,
Thought it was Lazarus.
and it goes into.
He has many names, but his Samael is
I've
his
heard
name.
Beelzebub. I've heard all kinds
we're
of
gonna
things.
we're gonna have
Lucifer.
to we're gonna have
The
to
Christians
do this.
came out.
We're gonna have to do this in a way where
Lucifer's
we're
a
able
title,
where we're
by the
able
way.
to actually
Lucifer's
do
a
this.
title?
It's a title. It's not a
Lucifer,
name.
yes.
It's a title.
Guys, I need everyone to take a breath.
All right.
Everyone take a breath. So going to the church, right? The whole point is that when Sammy walks in and then the dad says, "Drop the guitar," he's telling him he wants to deliver him from sin. Now, what did
Deliver your
religion?
mama.
What did religion call sin?
Good question.
Sin. Everything that's not of Christian is like, if you're doing certain type of music.
Don't even go too far. Ancestral practices.
Yes,
That's it.
specifically.
Because
That's it.
the whole
But nobody
premise
ever
is
says that blanketly. Nobody actually ever answers that question clearly.
Well,
that
most
that
people
is
don't
what,
know. Most people don't know.
They do. I think intrinsically, internally, is that unspoken rule that you know, but you can't. They don't say it.
It's like an unsaid understanding.
Yes. And so they'll say things like what we have said before, like anything that goes against the Bible. And then you
Well,
look at the
it's-
Bible and you're like, what goes against the Bible?
So this episode, we're going in. And what I mean by we're going in, we're taking the gloves off. In initiation, there's this concept known as spiritual confusion. And spiritual confusion, as we teach it and as we understand it, is that in order to pull people away from what was known as Kemetic spirituality and what was ruling the world, they then based everything off of Kemetic spirituality. Now, they had to make it resemble African spirituality, Kemetic spirituality to a certain extent, so that people felt like they weren't truly giving up their culture. So at the end of the day, the only time you really think or you hear about music in the church is when you start talking about church with black people. When you start talking about, that's why you
Why
only
you
see
think that is.
That's why you
Why
only
you
see.
think that
That's why
is.
you only see people getting taken in the black church.
Why you
because
think that
there's the
is.
aspect of music. You don't see the aspect of music in the church when it comes to Catholicism. You see music when it comes to the aspect of Christianity. When it comes to Southern Baptist black churches.
You will see like an organ, but because I've been to those churches back in the day, and
How did you survive in that, bro?
Huh?
How did you survive in that? I had to go to Mormon churches when I was like younger because my aunt and my uncle were Mormon. I used to spend summers there. Worst experience of my life, bro.
Man, it's rough, man. It should get confusing because I used to like try debate Jehovah's Witnesses and stuff like that. And we used to,
Don't even do it. Me too. Me too. Don't even.
Let's not get off topic.
Like, bro, what you just said is key. Is very key to the movie because the guitar again. Going back to the guitar again was the guitar of Stack and Smoke's father, right? So he's the same bloodline because traditional
in the
spirituality,
conversation,
right?
in the conversation with the lady that likes Sammy, she says to him, she goes, "Oh, y'all are cousins?"
Right.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah, we're cousins." Hold on. She's like, "Yeah, we're cousins." He's like, "Yeah, we're cousins." And then he's like, "Oh, y'all must." She's like, "Oh, y'all must be play cousins." And he's like, "Nah." He's like, "Their daddy, meaning Smoke and Stack's daddy, is my daddy's older brother." And then she goes, "Oh, then y'all blood, y'all real cousins."
That's the
explain
key.
explain that.
Okay.
Explain that to people.
Okay, so let me clear this up. So for most people don't know this, when you have a man and a woman who come together to make a child, I know nowadays they have all these different ideologies coming out about like who owns a child or what and what, but think about it this way. If I plant an orange seed into the earth being the woman, what's going to grow is oranges. I can't plant an orange seed and get an apple. I can't plant an apple and get an orange. When a man and a woman sleep together and they have a child, the sperm, what you call sperm, is the seed. The seed is the identity. So that means that is the man passing down his identity to the child. The fact that the brothers, both fathers of Sammy and the twins, are brothers, mean they're of the same blood, meaning they come from the same exact seed. That makes Sammy and the twins basically brothers. In a cultural context, they're the same. In an African cultural context, they are the same because they're from the same seed. So that means everything in their blood
And that
was passed down to Sammy. So the fact that the father had that guitar before, and the fact that Sammy has that gift and it was passed down to Sammy, the reason why the guitar can work for him and it even worked as a protection when he hit
even
the
saved his
vampire
life.
was because it's something in his bloodline. It saved his life. That represents your ancestral culture and your bloodline, your lineage. So the fact that when the father was telling him, let it go, that's the same thing the colonizers did to our ancestors when they were trying to tell us to let go of everything our family, our bloodline ever had.
And our culture.
And our culture ever had. Even when the guitar was broken in pieces from his altercation with the vampire being colonialism, as a system,
Right.
as an entity, it was broken. And he still refused to let it go. That's because he refused to let go of what he had. We lost so much during slavery, during colonization. So whatever little bit we have to hold on to. Because holding on to that little bit is how we get to reclaim and then put those pieces back together. Because if you notice at the end of the movie, the guitar was restored.
yes.
Not only was the guitar restored, he says, "Are you still real?" And then what do they cut to? They cut to Sammy opening up the guitar case.
Yep.
They cut to Sammy opening up the guitar case, and then he pulls out the guitar.
And he's
That's
still
powerful.
and he's still playing with the scars on his
he's
side
still
of his
playing.
face.
You know what was fascinating to me too, with going back to his father, is his father knew. You know, it's almost like how there are different types of folks in the church. Let's be straight up. There's folks who are scared and don't know, and there's folks who know and are scared. And those who know and are scared tend to be the ones who run it, because they end up knowing how to. It's almost like church seemed like a prison. If you study film, then and you look at the beginning of the movie, look at the people in the church, look at the father's face. There was like a darkness, kind of sweaty, kind of like fear.
Well,
Like
you're fighting yourself.
Yes,
You're fighting against yourself.
Yes, but it's such in contrast to such a bright looking building, right? And as a child, I always wondered, why is church indoors if the Lord created outside? I always questioned that myself. And so watching that movie again, there was like this heaviness in that church. And they keep calling him preacher boy, right? Preacher
Preacher boy.
son of a preacher. That comes with what Sammy has.
And the
That-
preacher
But that
represents
runs
God.
in the family, which means it's the father knows.
That's interesting because that's typically how it's hidden. Like you have some abilities you don't really know about, and religion is typically where people go hide it. And
It's like a prison
Right.
for your gift in a way. Like,
like you mask it, you hide it.
and you go there to protect yourself, and that's actually what it's like. We say it in this country, but I don't think we dig deep to what that really means. Because if they truly know in this country their ancestors hid things in the church, then that means there was something to hide.
You can't tell a lot of people that.
No, they do know that. They'll
But you
say it
can't
out
say
their
that.
mouths.
But you can't say that.
But when it comes
Yeah,
to
you end up in
actually
a fight.
opening
Or
up what
argument.
they hid in the church, that's when nobody wants to take the step.
You can't say that. People,
to
like
do
you
it.
said, people are very scared of it. Like Tutipsa said, there's a reason why you only see people getting taken in black churches. Again, our spiritual practices, our ancestral practices, the things we get from our bloodline, the things we get from our lineage, those things were passed down to us, but in secret in the church. I know personally, I can speak for my family personally. It only is when I entered initiation, I started to understand the things that they hid. Because from my grandmother, understanding the way she did things and how she taught her children, and then having to now interact with my mother and then ask her questions, I can see that there was a level of scaredness or fear where they did not want to teach it in its full potential, its full light, because there was going to be persecution from the state or from the governing authorities of the system. And you see it, again, going back to the guitar, representing what we have as our ancestral culture. That's what the guitar represents.
Yeah.
Well, the guitar not only represents ancestral culture, it represents what we consider the specialty.
Yes.
What we consider the specialty
Bloodline
within the
specialty.
bloodline. Because Sammy utilizing the guitar shows that he's now tapping into the ancestral specialty and the
Yes.
bloodline specialty of the griots.
And it shows
Passed
the,
down.
the importance of passing it down.
And the importance of passing it down. And the reason why he's being given the guitar is because he's the next one within the bloodline to then capture whatever is in the bloodline and to then
take it.
and
And
to
actually
continue.
Which
use
makes
it.
the twins his brother.
Right.
Of course,
Exactly.
the
They're
twins, the twins
brothers.
are his
Right,
brothers.
right.
Look how that goes.
Yeah.
And one of the things I asked myself when that scene came up, I was like, well, if we all have gifts. So like, we could be living in this all the time and not, like, based on how society is set up and how things like Christianity separates us from where we come from. We all have gifts, and then the vampire sort of represents like the thing that comes to like take it away. But
Right.
they won't admit to you. That's the only difference that the movie does. The vampire was straight up. Is like, I'm here for your gifts and what you have, your stories. And that's what we have. Because if you look at indigenous culture now, the places where we live, they're always coming to take what we have.
Whether we go to church or
Right.
not.
Go on.
They always
Keep
come
going.
to take what we have,
Whether
whether
we-
whether
Keep
it,
going.
whether it be the minerals, whether it be the language. So
It's the people. It's the resource.
yes, it's and human resources
But there's
are
a,
gifts.
there's a key to what you're saying. I don't mean to interrupt, so I'd love for you to hold what you're saying and continue when I'm done. Whether you acknowledge it or not, whether you go to church or not, no matter, it's getting passed down.
Right.
And it's there. If you hide up in the building, it's still there. It's like, and that baptism scene with the quote unquote, the devil with the vampire, is like, yo, we can say it too. You thought we was gonna, like, you thought we was gonna die? They all sung along because at the end of the day, that's not gonna save you.
Right.
It may help you run away and hide, but it's not gonna save.
What
If-
saved
if
him was
anything,
his
it makes
own
it worse.
ancestors.
It makes it worse. But what were you
His
gonna
own ancestors is what saved him.
Yes.
The bloodline specialty, the things that's being passed down is what saved him.
Not
so
just-
it shows you that your identity, who you are, you can't go anywhere else outside of yourself to find salvation.
Let me add one more thing to what you're saying. Yes, that saved him, but also other people honoring their specialty saved him. Because if Annie didn't honor her specialty and knowledge and knowing what to do at what time, Sammy would be screwed. If if Smoke ain't keep his physique about him, if he didn't keep that energy about him, in this society sometimes when a man is like a man, it's demonized. Like, no, he kept that about himself. He didn't, even though Annie scared him a little bit in like what she does, he didn't run away from it. He held her down. And because the right people are in the right place at the right time, Sammy was able to be saved in that way.
Well, they all held different parts of back home. Annie held the divination aspect in terms of like utilizing the bones and doing the divination. That's why they show her when she's like, no, it ain't a wraith, it's a vampire.
Right.
These are vampires, they're different. Because what happens is the spirit gets trapped in the body and then they're not able to continue the transition.
That
And
part.
then
That was
and then
key.
That's
it's
serious.
It's key because Annie holds a certain part, Smoke holds a certain part because Smoke has the spiritual protections, and then Sammy holds a certain part because Sammy's been the one to continue with the spiritual predisposition, with the spiritual abilities to continue and move forward. So they all hold different parts, and that's why they were so upset. The vampires were so upset when Annie was killed, so they weren't able to absorb
Her gift.
that
Her
gifts.
gift
Yeah.
The
because
knowledge.
they want the gift of Sammy. They want to be able to, and that's why because the vampires are strictly symbolic, and the vampires are strictly symbolic in that they represent what we know as religion and what we know as the Western society, what we recognize as America. Because when the important part throughout the whole movie and the through line throughout the whole movie, and this is what I was going to say, I was going to tell you guys later, once we actually started the podcast, was there's a conversation that occurs where Sammy says to Stack when they're in the car, and it's just the two of them, and he says, "Oh, y'all been to Chicago? I really want to go to Chicago. I want to get out of here." And then Stack says to him, he says, "Chicago ain't nothing but Mississippi with big buildings." He says it's the same thing as the Delta with big buildings. And then he goes, "But no, it's got to be different." Then he has a conversation where Smoke and Sammy are talking, okay? And when they're talking and they're on the balcony, and then Smoke is telling Sammy, he says, "You're not going to be a musician. You're not doing this. You're going to have to go do something else. This ain't the kind of life you want to live." And then Sammy says to Smoke, he goes, "You can't tell me what I can and I can't do, because I'm going to do it just like y'all did it, and I'm leaving. I'm not going to be here, and I'm not going to stay here on this plantation." And he's like, "No, you have to live a different life." He goes, "You have to leave it to us in order to live this life." And then he goes, "No," he's like, "I'm going to leave." And he goes, "Let me tell you something." He said, "When me and Stack first left, we went to a black community in Mississippi. And when we went there, we found a community of black people, and they turned us away because they said that the mayor of that town knew my daddy. And when he recognized us as being our daddy's sons, he said we were evil, just like our daddy, and he wouldn't let us in." And he goes, "But you're the son of your father, who is a preacher, and you can go there, and you can be accepted, and you can be a part of it." Now that's important, because what that's signifying and what that is talking about is it's talking about how if you truly are a representation of your ancestors and a true manifestation of the culture from back home in Africa, you don't have a place in America. But if you do it in a way that resembles what they consider the society in America in terms of being a derivative of religion, you have a place. And that's what he's trying to tell Sammy. He's trying to tell Sammy, you have a place within the society as long as you do it in the way your father is doing it. But you do not have a place in this society if you do it the other way. And it doesn't matter if you go to Chicago. It doesn't matter where you go. If you do it this way, you have a place. And then Sammy's like, "Nah, what the fuck are you talking about?" And then he's like, "I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to get you to understand." That's why at the end, because what it really represents is because you have, like you said, the duality, right? There's the duality aspect of when Stack is trying to turn Sammy and he can't turn Sammy. He realizes, oh, it's the mojo.
You mean Smoke?
Smoke.
Smoke realizes it's the mojo
Right.
that isn't allowing him to be turned. That's the protection he has. So what saves Sammy and what saves Smoke at the same time is the connection to their ancestors. It's the spiritual predisposition and the manifestation of it within the guitar that saves him from Remick. And then it's the mojo, which is the spiritual manifestation of the spiritual protections, the ancestral practices being with you, your ancestors being with you, that saves Smoke from Stack turning him. And it happens at the same time. Now, the same aspect that's being played while there's the dualistic aspect of the protection, saving you from being absorbed by the society, from being absorbed by the colonizers, by being absorbed by religion. when Smoke is fighting the KKK people, and when Sammy is at the church and he's deciding like, no, I'm gonna do it and I'm not letting go of it, and he won't let go of the guitar, is the
Don't
fact
let go of yourself, bro.
Yeah.
is the fact
Don't let go of
when
yourself.
the white man says to Smoke, I have money. And then Smoke then snaps back and shoots him.
You got to remember, too, in the beginning when Smoke first went to see Annie and he was telling her about the juke joint and he was telling her his plans and everything, she said, I don't want your money. Because why? That money is filled with what?
It's blood. It's blood, money. But he says all of it is blood money.
All of it
but
is
the
blood
point
money.
The point being is that that's why at the end, when when Stack goes to then talk to Sammy, and he goes, we thought we were free, but we weren't free. Because as long as you are the manifestation of your ancestors in a society that does not accept you and does not want you to exist, does not want you to have it, you will never be free.
Fucking genius, man. I keep
Yeah,
telling y'all,
it's
bro.
good, man.
The movie is genius.
It is genius,
Yes.
'cause-
Bro, and going back to Sam, not to cut you off, going back to Sammy again, if you notice, Sam, the name, Sammy, Samael,
Right.
the devil is actually, in many other cultures or many other versions of the Bible, represented as the God or the one who gives people music. Like there's a show called Lucifer. If you watch it,
I've
the
seen-
main character is always on the piano. He's always
Yes,
playing.
he's
the piano.
always playing the-
If you notice in the music industry, they call them a lot of people behind the scenes. They worship the devil behind the scenes. That's why those specific people control the music industry, because the music is how they connect to the spiritual realm. But going back to Sammy being named Sam, it's because he's the rebellious one. He rebels against his quote unquote father because his father represents the system, like he's saying, right? He rebels against his cousin, who's really his brother. Why? Because his brother is telling him one way, he's seeing it to do it another way. But that rebellion, to me, in that movie, is showing the spirit that you have to have as an individual. You have to have a rebellious spirit
Yeah.
in a society that does not want you to be who you truly are.
Yeah.
You have to have a revolutionary spirit. You have to be
It's
a rebel.
true.
You just can't survive in society without being one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to have the duality. You have to know how to fit and how to maneuver and kind of like fit into corners.
Yeah,
And
'cause-
that's why this movie is like so powerful.
genius.
From the name plus the guitar, bruh.
It's genius. I see the duality because it's for me also highlighting the different vices that comes to get you. If it's not religion, well, even money are the different ways the system comes to take you away from yourself, from your ancestors, from who you truly are. Because you see money, like what Tutipsa was saying, the white man saying to Smoke at the end, like, I have money. It's like, what? That ain't nothing.
That
It's-
is God.
Well, that's
Money is God.
their God. There's a movie, like a movie with a black guy and a white guy who puts on some shades. I can't remember the name of that movie.
I know a movie you're talking about.
live.
They Live, yeah. That's an interesting movie that kind of highlights that money is like a god too. And another movie I was thinking about is Sankofa with Muta Baruka, where
Sankofa.
Yeah, Sankofa. It's a Halimi
Sankofa.
Garima.
excuse me.
Halimi Garima film.
I
Oh, that's how you really pronounce it?
Sankofa.
I've been saying it wrong my whole life.
Sankofa. Yeah, where it talks all.
You said it wrong still.
It's a sentence in its own word, but
Yeah. What does it mean?
like the literal translation is like go and get, and like what we even learned in initiation, like to people in this state, right, in this country or this whatever, they'll say go and get, almost like, oh, I forgot my roots, let me go and get my roots. But what I learned in this initiation is even a bit more clearly, it's like you can't move forward if you don't get what is yours. You're actually stuck in a state of like, you're just stuck. until you get what you need to get. It's not a fluffy,
And you have
cute
to go
concept.
back.
You have to. You must. That's the only way to move forward. You can't fake move forward. It doesn't work that way. So, but anyway.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it touches on a lot in terms of even like religion, because like the church being placed there, and he has to fight against even his own father. So that's challenging, and a lot of times when you're doing things that you're trying to like free yourself, or at least find the truth, or see that there's some issues with the system that you live in. A lot of times it's your family. Like I've experienced that, where it's like your family's like, "What are you doing? You're devil worshiping, or you need God. You don't even believe in God.
It's a cult.
Yep, that kind of shit."
Because with Christianity, asking questions is already a sin. Like as soon as you start questioning, are you questioning God?
Yeah.
It's that's already a sin. But what was really
Well,
good
that's why
too,
they teach it to you on the plantation.
Yes, but I wanted to open up this other point, which I thought was like great, because the director, he talked about how much research he did in twins that really allowed this movie to manifest, right?
I wanted to get
That's a big
Let's do
one.
it.
Yeah, because what he did was he had friends, 2 white guys that were twins, that were the ones who helped even Michael B. Jordan, like in his acting, right? And he mentioned this one part where he was sitting with the twins. They were friends. I mean, they were brothers, duh. And they were just sitting close to each other. And he realized, he was like, "Are y'all doing that for me or for you?" And he goes, "Oh, we're doing it for you." As in, we sit next to each other, because if we don't sit next to each other, if we're at a party and we're not next to each other, people start to freak out. Because they're like, who did I just see? But when they see 2 twins in one area, their mind is a bit more calm. And so they use that strategy when they meet people they don't like. Because now that other person's wondering where their other half is. So they never fight by themselves. They use that tactic of their identity in their interactions with people. And so he utilized like the human behavior that we all observe and live. Like you can't deny it. Like it's kind of trippy if you don't know who's who. But he utilized that, and the way that twins are in cultures. In his research, he also focused on the Yoruba culture. But I've seen in other African spirituality in different regions that twins kind of have an essence that's special, connected to like deity, right? In some sense. And so like, I really find it fascinating how he utilized those 2 knowledge to kind of bring up this movie. Because he wanted to do the movie, but he thought it would be best to do it with twins. Because in a way, the twins is what kind of wakes Sammy up to be who he is.
Because if you noticed, Tutipsa, and I think both of us mentioned it briefly, when he was explaining what he was explaining, and I chimed in, I said duality. That's why, to me, the twins aspect caught my attention. Because when the movie started and the twins were introduced, immediately, one was wearing blue hat, the other one was wearing a red hat.
Yes.
Immediately in my mind, because again, since we're going here, right? In our initiation, we have an understanding of how the foundation of what we call African spirituality came from what people nowadays call ancient Kemet. Wisser and Set, 2 brothers who made 2 completely different choices in how they would live their existence. One chose to live his immortality through reincarnation, the cycle of birth and death, cyclical nature. The other one chose sterility. He doesn't have like the cyclical nature. His nature is linear. He lives forever. Everything is like stagnant. It's just straight. If you noticed in the movie, there was a point where they took Sammy to get their stuff, to get their wagon, and there was a snake
Yes.
There was a snake right there.
Yes. There was a snake.
In the
I remember that.
Who killed the
in the
snake?
wagon, in the back of
Right.
the wagon.
Who
If you
killed the
notice,
snake?
they
work
want
together.
the one who represents Set being red because red being the color of like violence, anger, can even be incidents, accidents, whatever. He throws the knife to the brother who represents Wisser. Mind you, when we talk about Set and we talk about Wisser, one might be a representation of what we might be perceiving as evil or bad or negative from a human context versus good or purity or light. He throws it to the one who represents good, and it also represents reincarnation, rebirth, and death. And he kills the snake. Snakes can represent rebirth, resurrection, and death. At the end, who dies? The one who kills the snake.
Yep.
The who
Yeah.
lives forever and is unchanging and stays stagnant for the rest of his life.
Yep.
Stack, the one wearing the red hat. Again, this movie is so deep because it's also bringing in the concept of duality. It's showing you that there's two ways of living life. It's showing you that, in
bro.
everything that you do in existence, you
Yes.
have to take into consideration this aspect of duality. There's a negative and there's a positive. The same way Sammy, being quote unquote the devil because of his name, the rebellious one,
Right.
was the one to now actually spread his ancestral culture through what we would perceive to be as like Black America today.
You know who gave that speech you're giving right now? Merrick, the vampire. That's what he explained to Sammy when he was like scared, like he was the devil. He goes like, you guys are confused. Like, we're one and the same. We're natural. We're here, like the trees and the breeze. Like, and that's like what religion and Christianity comes to kind of make you divide in your brain, like, oh, that's bad, must stay away, that's demonic. Yet it's part of reality,
He needs to make a good point. Wisser also chose death. Smoke chose death because when he removed his protections,
Right,
If
yes.
people didn't understand the reason why he did that in that movie was because he knew he wanted to see his family again. He wanted to see Annie again. He wanted to see his daughter.
Yeah.
Huh? The
Yeah,
son,
the son.
exactly.
The
He wanted to
son.
see. In that moment, that to me represents who do you want to be?
Yeah.
Do you want to be the person who gives up everything for what? Money, power, fame, glory? Because that's what evil represents. That's what evil uses to charm the human being because it taps into the weakness of the human nature. Or do you want to be the one who's dying for something? In that moment, he represented not only Wisser, but Heru. Because you can't have Wisser without Heru. You can't have ancestral culture and ancestral memory. You can't have culture and spirituality without understanding those two principles, Wisser and Heru. And in that moment, he removed his protection because he knew he chose to die. He knew where he wanted to go. He knew where he was choosing. That was the most powerful
That's
scene.
powerful.
Powerful scene. And
Every
before he died, who did he see? His
wife
family,
and-
his
yeah,
wife.
and child.
And as
Child.
soon as that man said, I'll give you my man, it's a snap,
And that's a representation of family.
That was big.
Because I mean, even
It's
when
powerful,
you
man.
like the concept that Kajazrim is talking about, when you look at the Gate of Gates emblem,
Talk about it.
you have Heru and you have Set. So the concept that Kajazrim is talking about is Heru Set. Heru having the blue color and then Set having the red color. So you have these two brothers essentially vying for and then fighting for supremacy. But because, you have these two energies vying for supremacy. Heru representing the Wisserian concept, the Wisserian principle in terms of death, rebirth, and Set representing the Setian principle in terms of a linear principle that is self-sustaining and never dies. And that is ultimately what you see playing out in terms of the fight between the two brothers. You see the fight playing out in that you have Smoke representing the Wisserian principle or the Heru, And then you have Stack representing the Setian principle or the linear principle. And that's what you see playing out. That's why they weren't able to kill each other. That's why they weren't able to then gain supremacy over the other. Because even when Stack goes to see Sammy at the end in 1992, when he says like, hey, okay, you know, like, are you real still? Like, show me if you're real. Like, you still got the real? And then he smells him and he's like, yeah, I don't think you have much longer. You're going to die. Right before you cut away and then Sammy shows him like he's still real, Stack puts the money on the table, representing like he's like of the Setian principle.
Which
because
the system
money,
represents.
which the system represents. Because that's why
Message.
right before he kills
Big message.
the white man tries to pull him away from dying and pulls him back into the focus of the world of Set, and then says to him, I have money. And then he kills him. Now, Heniste has a question. She says, what do you guys think of the significance of the rumor that the twins killed their father? So the significance of the like killing the father aspect is the fact that the father in this instance represents someone that has already succumbed to religion and succumbed to the conditioning of the way the system looks at African spirituality. And that's why when when Smoke is talking to Sammy on the balcony and he's telling him, you can't live like this and you can't have this type of lifestyle and you need to go elsewhere. You need to figure out another way. And then he says like, I think he says something to the extent of like, you know, like you can't, like it's something about sin or something like that. It's because sin in and of itself represents what you consider African spirituality. It's what you consider your alignment with your spiritual predispositions, with your ancestral veneration. That's what you consider a sinner. That's what you consider someone that is not aligned with the Setian principles. You consider them a sinner because religion is a tool of the Setian principles. Religion is a tool of the Setian principles that allows people to then think they're living a Wasirian life or aligning themselves with Wasirian principles, but they actually aren't. So Smoke killing the father is attempting to give Stack the opportunity to then actually align with Wasirian principles. Because Smoke represents the unwavering dedication to your ancestral principles.
That's Heru.
He's Heru. He's not giving up.
He's the warrior.
He's not giving up.
Yeah,
And that's why he's like, I'm a soldier.
because they were both soldiers.
I'm a warrior. They were both
They were both soldiers.
they were both soldiers, but Stack, I'm sorry, but yeah, Stack.
Smoke was the one really doing it.
Yeah.
Like he even mentions in the movie, I'm the one who's protecting him. I'm the one who watches his back and makes sure he stays alive and make sure he's on the right path. So you can see he's playing the role of the father. Because traditionally in the African context, if your father dies and you're the older brother, you become the father. There's no way around it.
Right.
You become the one who holds the responsibility. And it's the same way all of us can be held as responsibles for our father. And in some contexts, if, you know, maybe we can say if our fathers or our forefathers, maybe they did succumb to the Setian principles. Maybe they did succumb to the Setian ways of life. But now you being the one to now understand that and then now reclaiming or holding the guitar as the one holding your ancestral culture, you could be seen as the father. So in a way, that's you killing your father, but not killing your father literally,
Right.
but it's you claiming what's really behind you and behind your blood.
Powerful.
Yeah, I'm telling you, the movie
Yeah,
is
it's genius,
amazing.
Yeah,
man.
that's a
It's
deep. That was a great question because I wondered while I was watching it, is that, you know, them doing that to their father, is that what consequently brought about, you know, the karma of the situation? Like, okay, if you look at it on a level where you don't know initiation, it could seem as if, well, that's what y'all get. Y'all evil. Like, y'all did this, y'all did that. I actually was thinking about that too with like that night, how everything was set up perfectly for conjuring some stuff. You know, they had the catfish, they had the liquor. They're like, the sign's gonna be in red. You know what I'm saying?
What is it called? Yeah, it was in red.
It was in red.
Jukebox? Juke
Jukebox.
joint?
Juke joint. It
Juke
was in a
joint.
slaughterhouse. Did they know it was a slaughterhouse? No, but just the energies were so favorable for that.
I think the interesting thing about
But
that is
wait, Cop, I was gonna just say
Finish.
that it's not necessarily bad. Once again, it goes according to knowledge is knowledge. If you know what's what, you know what to do when you need to do something, right? But if you don't think like that, you'd be like, that's bad. This is good. This is bad. That's evil. Like we were talking about what religion does, right? It just makes you throw everything ancestral into this bad bin. And so when you do that, you're putting the knowledge away. You're not even knowing that there are things and rules to this life that exist. And that's
become a
even what ancestral wisdom is hey, this is what reality is
without
like.
it, you become a vampire.
Yeah.
And then once you become a vampire, you become a tool of the system to then
Right.
spread the vampirism to everybody else.
And-
That's what the vampire
Yeah.
represents.
True.
It's like in the initiation, we have that same kind of concept. It's like evil takes territory.
Yeah, it's an agent of the system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then the interesting thing about what Amma's bringing is that the fact that the juke joint, right, is a place that you go to kind of like unwind.
Right.
This is where duality plays a part again. You unwind, you want to get off of the day-to-day, the grind,
Right,
the
right.
hustle and bustle. But at the same time, what is the phrase? If you dance with the devil long enough, he'll come
He'll
home
come
with
home
you.
with you, yeah.
That's what his father
That's what
said.
his father said.
That's
I
what his
thought
father
that
said,
was his
right?
father
Yeah.
cursing him.
No, it's
That's
not.
what I thought.
It's not
in the
cursing him.
beginning. Yeah.
That part is actually very accurate if you look at it from an initiatic context.
Yes.
Because if you as an initiate, not even as an initiate, just as a person, you go anywhere in the world and you are involving yourself in places where there's temptations,
Right.
where there's things you know might tempt you to go away from a certain path,
Yeah.
you're easy to fall victim to certain energies to come on you. So in the juke joint, the interesting thing was this. The whole time, everything there was all about debauchery. It was all about fun. It was all about
Yeah.
sex and just having fun and
Yeah.
releasing and drinking and drunken and all of that.
Eating.
The one thing that was there that made the balance was the fact that Sammy had the gift to
Yes.
connect everyone to the spiritual. But anywhere there is something good, there must be something bad. Anywhere there's something bad, there must be something good. So it doesn't matter. The vampires would have came there anyway. Because the
Right.
system is always seeking where indigenous people or where natural spiritual principles are to encroach on it, to take territory. That's why they said in the movie, you can't be free. You can never be free.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you can't have a small system of spirituality or a small system of like your own identity within a larger system
Right. It's
that
gonna
is
swallow you.
always trying to swallow you. It's always going to try to swallow you.
Swallowed.
Yeah.
You have to go
And
somewhere else.
And it's interesting because
Yeah.
what Tutipsa was saying, like, in order to do it, you kind of have to like live a dualistic life. You gotta like find a way. What the brother was explaining to the cousin is like, you can't do this full on. You gotta kind of do it with a balance, because the system is gonna find a way to get you, some way, shape, or form.
Well, the vampires in and of themselves represent the parasitic nature that is what you consider the Western society. Because the vampires
Message.
didn't have the ability to then die. Because in the initiatic context, we understand that evil cannot enter into the world of the dead. So evil cannot enter into what is known as the invisible realm. So evil, the actual evil, because we have to differentiate between evil and sinning.
Right.
There you go.
Sinning and evil.
Right.
go.
Because sinning is what evil considers to be anti-evil. Whereas that sinning in and of itself is actually ancestral practices, ancestral veneration. That's why, going back to that conversation, because that's really the aspect of the movie that makes or breaks the film, is Smoke tells Sammy, don't be evil, be a sinner, essentially. That's what he's telling him. That's what the conversation is centered around.
And it's called Sinner.
And the conversation is centered around that because what the church, what the parasites, what the vampires, what the colonial system, what the modern system considered sinning is what they actually utilized in order to access the non-material because it's ancestral practices.
Right.
That's why when Remick comes, he says, I want your gifts.
I want your stories.
I want to usurp your gifts. I want to usurp your stories. And then I want to utilize it because utilizing it will then allow me to see the people that I love and the people that I miss. Because what Remick does when he pulls all of the people that he's turned into vampires into the Irish jig is Remick is then teaching them, I have something I have lost as well.
There you go.
I have something that has been taken
Biggest
from
point of the
me
movie.
And it's-
as well.
And
That's one of the biggest points
and
of
it's
the
very
movie.
interesting that when he took over the Chinese man, he also took his language.
He took his language.
very
Took his
symbolic.
language.
Bang!
Because
And
that's,
banger.
you can't have
Banger.
culture without language,
Because
as we learn.
Language carries
'Cause they-
culture, principles, taboos, forbiddens,
All of it.
what we consider all of the
Concepts.
things, concepts,
Co-
all of the things that can carry what is considered culture, because that's what it is.
Yeah, because when the Chinese lady, the wife of the husband who got taken by the vampire, when she heard that, like, this motherfucker walk up in here speaking Cantonese to me. What?
But if you notice, that's when Smoke, who's a representation of the ancestral practices, the representation of the Wissyrian principle, he says, Annie, he says, Grace, I promise we're gonna get out of here. And then immediately he tries to pull her away from getting drawn into it because she wants to fight it. And that's the other aspect of it.
Right.
Is you can't fight evil and then not become evil.
Yeah.
That's why, if you notice, she's the first one to burn.
Yeah, that's
When
why
she
burns.
says, "All you motherfuckers, come on in," she's the first person to die,
Yeah.
first person to burn. And that part was very interesting because I was watching some commentary from the Asian community, and I agreed with a lot of what they said because I have some Asian friends because I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I worked particularly with Japanese and Korean people. And Chinese people as well. But the Chinese people were interesting in the fact that all of my Chinese friends, I noticed, hate being Chinese. It was the most interesting thing. They hate being Chinese. Especially my man, Chris. He hated being Chinese so much. Like, if you were to see him, you would swear, like obviously he looks Chinese, but you would swear he's black. Like, all his friends are black. Like, aside from his Chinese people, he still hangs out with his Chinese people, but his friends are black. He hangs out in Harlem. He dresses black. He listens to black music. Everything is black. And I found it interesting that they put Chinese people in this movie because if you notice, Chinese have always played a role where they play both sides.
They're everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere they play both sides because they're always looking to profit from
Yes.
whoever. They had in the movie they had a store for the black people and a store for the white people because this is during Jim Crow. It's like segregation.
Yeah,
Segregated
and the mother
South.
was working on the other side.
The mother was working for the side with that serviced the white people.
Yeah, I
The
noticed
father was working for the side that serviced the black people.
Yes.
You can see how that
segregation.
the segregation was playing a part, right?
But even how they utilized the, like,
Exactly.
the gender in a
exactly
wise way.
And one of the reasons why he told me he hated being Chinese was because he felt like the culture was too strict on him. He didn't feel free. He also mentioned, because we had another friend, Alan, who had his girlfriend, they were like, had like an arranged marriage or something, and the girlfriend was very hard on him all the time. And I learned that in their culture, the women are the ones who make all the decisions, especially when it comes to financial gains. So in the movie,
Interesting.
the husband had to go to the wife to assert the deal that Smoke wanted, and she was the one to negotiate.
Right.
They're the ones who hold the power in like their cultures, but at the same times, they're also the ones who are always like, hey, no, we need to do for us and only us. But the men, you can kind of see, are always like, well, you know, let's kind of go into this. And that part was significant in the movie, because if you know the history of the Chinese in America, there was something called the Chinese Expulsion Act, where there was many riots and massacres of Chinese people during the 17 and 1800s. Chinese people were getting lynched too.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a history we don't really know about in
Yes.
America. And
Yes.
in a way, they were kind of like grouped in with the black people.
Yes.
So they kind of found like kind of like a you know, like a kind of like a brotherly
Fellowship.
Fellowship.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why they were able to get into the juke joint, and the white vampires were not, because it was like a fellowship.
Right.
But the Chinese women are always like, hey, you know, we cool, but you know,
Yeah.
it's for her. It's like, you know, it's like, nah, it's something else. Like, I'm just trying to profit here.
It's
Like,
a business.
It's a business exchange. And it showed in the movie, like, yo, people are only going to go as far as they gain.
You know, even Smoke tried to teach
Interesting.
that young girl that lesson. That young black girl, he asked to wash the car, and he goes, I'll give you this amount. And she said, okay. And he was like, nah. Don't do that. And he taught her how to go back and forth with negotiation. Negotiation is key,
He tells her numbers always need to be in conversation with one another.
because they're always in.
Because they're always in conversation with one another. Because, I mean, that's why, again, going back to the montage where you see the ancestors,
Yeah.
you only see the ancestors of people that have been engaging in ancestral veneration.
Right.
You see the ancestors of the black dudes, of the black people. You see the ancestors of the Chinese. Because
And they don't let go of their culture. That's another thing I learned
They
about
don't let
them.
go of
Yes.
their culture.
As
No,
much as
no.
he was telling me he hated it, as much as they were telling me, like, hey, this is this is that,
Yeah.
I noticed that they don't let go of their identity, but they're the ones who are willing to kind of integrate more into white society or the colonial system to have a gain.
Then
And
what
they will let you burn and sell you. They will open the doors to white people and sell you out in a heartbeat if they can gain something from it.
But what does that say about their culture if they can do that? You have to let go of something. Remember the state. If you are holding on to ancestral wisdom and ancestral culture, you will not be free. So you could try to hold both, but in this space, you have to let go a little bit.
But that's why she burned first. That's
There
the
you go.
representation of that.
Yeah.
It's like you can't, it doesn't matter how much you're trying to gain. If your perspective is simply gaining wealth or material in the colonial system or the colonial society, ultimately you will never gain anything. You will never gain true wealth because you still have to give up pieces of yourself. If you try to refuse to give up anything in the culture, ultimately it will just take all of you. That's why she burned first.
Wow.
The movie was, bro, genius.
It is.
Well made.
Genius.
Very.
Yeah, I mean the film in and of itself is allegorical in a lot of ways, but then it's also very, you know, very very forthcoming, because I felt like if you were going to end it, why didn't you end it with going back to Africa? Like, I was thinking to myself, why didn't you end it with going back to Africa? But the thing is that then I started to think about it, because when I watched it for the third time today, I started to think about it, and I said, oh, you can't have the people go back to Africa because they don't even, to a certain extent, they're still trying to buy into like what Remick represents. They're still trying to buy into what the system represents. And that's why when Smoke is sitting there and he's dying and he's in between the two worlds and he's looking to his right and he sees Annie and he sees his son, and then the white man's like, I have money. He then shoots the white man and then chooses to die, and then he takes his son and then he dies. Because it's literally a representation of when Stack is there and he's still alive, and Stack's never going to die. Stack is literally going to be a part of that system forever, and he's already incorporated into the system. It's because Smoke is the projection of the ancestors that refuses to assimilate into the Western society. And then Stack represents the projection of someone in terms of ancestors being lost within the system.
From that perspective, what you said before, like, why didn't it end going back to Africa? Like, in a way, it's showing you, like, I've always had this perspective. When people used to talk about going back to Africa, my perspective personally was, it doesn't necessarily mean physically everybody's going back, but it's more of a cultural and a mental revolution thing. But you can't expect it to happen for everyone. There's always going to be that duality at play. Some people are going to do that, and then other people are just not. And that's the reality we have to face. Some people have already bought into the system. Some people are going to go the Wasarian path. Other people are going to go the Setian path, because both paths have to exist.
I mean, it's so
That's
interesting.
tough.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah.
It's a tough pill to swallow, especially if you're somebody who's trying to reclaim yourself in those ways. And I know myself personally, you can go around trying to save people. You go around trying to say this, say that. Like, hey, why do you guys see this? Why you don't see this? Why you don't say that? Why don't you think this? Why don't you blah, 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 blah.
Try that.
It's
Don't work.
mute. You can only speak to who wants to be spoken to. And that's the reality. Because even like, you can see how Christians and everybody's backlashing this movie. They're saying it goes against Christianity. It goes against, some people even saying it goes against Black American identity, which is crazy to me.
Really?
That's insane.
But it's understandable from that perspective, because there's going to be pushback. There's going to be those people who are going to go one path, and there's always going to be other people who are going to go another path. Ultimately, that's just what it is.
There were people, actually, I was listening to another podcast. Once again, it was a podcast where they focused on the black and white. Like, you think they're getting it, and then they get stuck on, oh, whiteness is always going to try to get you, right? And this goes to the question
Wasn't
you
about
asked.
whiteness.
I know, but
That's another-
wait,
that's
Tatisa
another
just
thing.
asked a really important
That's another
question
distraction.
to why
The
what
black and
I'm
white.
bringing this up, because Tatisa just said, he wondered why it didn't end in Africa, because you got people still stuck in whiteness. Like, that wouldn't have been realistic. That would have probably taken it would have taken people out of the movie too far, fast. Like, you have to kind of meet them where they're at to even start to inch to that place. Because he directed Wakanda. Right. I highly doubt he had access to go and do that.
He must
No,
have
he
did
did
a lot
though.
of
I respect, you know,
No,
I
but
respect
he
the
did go.
director. He went and traveled everywhere and
Yeah.
really like immersed himself into it.
Yes.
I respect him for that.
Yes.
He really did.
He-
You can
he-
tell just
he-
by the stuff
by-
he was
by-
putting in it.
Yeah.
He must have put a lot into the movie, because there's a lot of really deep symbolism, like we were talking about. It's just like how he puts it together. It's genius, like you said, man. It's awesome. It's so many layers, and upon layers that we're talking about, like spiritual predispositions, culture, people wanting to take what you have,
Politics.
learn politics, holding on to what you have. It's just so much. Like, I'm going back to watch it like
Well, because the thing is
2
that
times. Makes me want to go get DVDs again.
No, seriously, I was saying that. Like, I want that as a DVD, Blu-ray. Give it to me.
Because we don't even, that's something I was thinking about too. You notice we don't even own like anything. Like everything is online. Like what if the power goes out? Like
Oh, you fucked. You're done.
Go off your memory.
That's it, yeah.
all right, the internet goes out.
Even like to throw this in there, like about the whiteness aspect. Again, when the vampire Remick was baptizing Sammy, which is funny again because he's Sammy, the devil, and he's saying the prayer with him. That scene alone is showing you like, yo, what we're fighting against is not a white and black thing. It's not a race thing. What we're fighting against is a power. We're fighting against a system itself. That's powerful because
You're fighting against evil.
evil,
You're
right?
trying to stay away from evil.
But here's the thing.
It use any and every means.
Any and every means, and
Color.
any and every body.
Yes.
That means white people are victims of it too. I always used to say this. White people are
Of
victims of
course.
slavery.
Oh, for
that's,
sure.
That's the thing is that's why him choosing to have the vampire be Irish is because Irish are, to quote that dude in Chicago that one time, he said the Irish are the niggas of Europe.
Yep.
Because at the end of the
Damn.
day,
Message.
the Irish were
the
subjected to
rebels.
colonization the same exact way everybody else was
Some of them were
subject
on
to
plantations with
colonization.
us.
Yeah.
Because the problem is that the Irish were practicing polytheism, and then the British were coming in and then forcing Catholicism and forcing Christianity on them. And that's why when that scene is happening, the only time you ever hear Remick speak in an Irish accent is when Sammy starts saying, "Hallowed be thy name," and then he starts speaking the prayer with him, and then he goes to the Irish accent. Because I was sitting there, and during the movie I was watching, and I was making sure to take note. I said he speaks in a Southern American accent the whole time. The only time he goes into the Irish accent is when the prayer is being said, and when he starts singing the Old Road to Dublin or whatever it is.
Yes.
That's the only time you ever hear him, because then you see him dancing, because then you
Loss of
see
his own culture.
You see him within the culture
Yeah.
in terms of what he has lost, because he's literally sitting there and he's like, he's like, I'm not. I come from a time that predates like you guys all looking at each other based on skin color. He's like, I don't want to be alone.
Right.
He's like, I want everyone to be a part of this with me. Like, and that's how evil functions, and that's why you cannot fight evil. You're not fighting colonization. You have to just like find ways to just be like, nah, like that ain't it. And that's what it really boils down to at the end of the day in terms of the film, is the film in and of itself is like, you can't say that you're this thing if you're allowing it to then absorb you and then consume you. And that's what Remick is. Remick is literally looking to absorb and consume everything around him, by any means possible. He's looking to now gather and conquer and absorb and consume everything. And he's even like, I'm gonna go turn those fucking KKK people too, and I'm gonna go turn those KKK people, because it's like, I want everything and I want everyone. And then literally they're like, the only one who's like, no, I'm not with this is Annie. The only ones that are like, nah, I don't want to be a part of that are the people that are holding on to
Their culture.
what is their culture.
Traditions.
She said, I'm going to die the right way.
Yeah. It also
Stab my heart if I'm turning. Don't make me turn. Like,
it also shows the viciousness of the system as well, because he resonate with the Christian prayer, right? Or prayer. So he's also a victim of it. And yet here he is making other people victims of what
Well,
he's a victim of. So
that's an aspect of, it goes back to that saying where it's like, hurt people hurt. And that's
people
why
hurt people.
That's the thing, is like, when you really look at human beings and you really look at human nature, it's like when a human being, look at kids, right? Like kids are the purest versions of how you can see human beings really function. If you hit a kid, if one kid walks up to another kid and hits the kid, one or two things are going to happen. That kid's either going to hit them back, or that kid's going to just absorb that, and then it's just either going to, depending upon how they go about it, process it in many different ways. Maybe they're going to carry that with them. Maybe they're just going to be like, what the hell was that? Or they're going to process it and be like, I don't understand why that happened, right? But realistically, if you're dealing with like someone that's really kind of just like whatever, that person's going to hit them back. And they're just going to be like, nope, boop, bat, tit for tat, so on and so forth. So that's what it really comes down to. It really comes down to the fact that like Remick is literally just like, hey, this was done to me. And like, but they also, when you look at the vampires, they have the inability to contextualize that what they're living in and what they're now existing within is something unfavorable to them, which even ties into the way that clouds you and that blinder gets put on you when you've been marked for a certain level of declassification based on not living according to your ancestral practices, as we talk about in the initiation, because they were like, no, this is great. Like, this is what I want. Like, and we want you to have it. And that's why they're like, we're not leaving. Mary literally says to them when Annie asks, and she's like, why don't y'all just go? And then she's like, we're not leaving without y'all. Yep. And that's what it is that like, it can't exist and it can't continue to exist without absorbing other people, without encompassing other people, conquering other people. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to the fact that Remick has been so consumed by that thing that he doesn't even realize that he's pulling in other people to this thing, because he's so deluded, he's so hurt, he's so far gone that he doesn't understand that he's pulling people into something that is making them unnatural and is making them evil, which is different than the classification of sinner, which is the classification, those tools that led them to being evil, which means going against what it means to be a human at the end of the day, which means being, and when you really break down what it means to be a human, being a human means a human being that is living according to Wisser's principles. So it is, like you say, like Hanisa just said, Remick actually thinks he's helping them by allowing them to live in a community where racism doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, it is still a form of racism, because now they're pulled into a community and they're pulled into like a cult of sorts, in which it's the vampires versus the non-vampires.
It's a tool.
This is what we call
it's a tool utilized.
gentrification, really. Because now if you look at, like, I was thinking about this the other day, about Martin Luther King and how he had like a dream, right? That was his dream, was to have integration between blacks and whites. But as I was I thought about this because I was walking through Chinatown, and I noticed like every store was Chinese. Like there was no store that you could identify that wasn't Chinese. And I thought about it. I was like, okay, I see what happened here. People integrated into a system that was not favorable to them, and because of the integration, they had to give up everything. It means giving up not just their businesses, not just their stores, but also meant giving up their identity and their culture, to the point where you can't necessarily differentiate between what we're calling white America and black America, if not for music, which is why hip hop can be very dangerous to the cultural identity of a people, because it's allowing you to think that you're still having a sort of culture, when really you're going away from your actual culture, or you're diminishing or lowering the vibrations of the original thing
Can I chime
in the
in?
name of fun.
Can I
Right.
chime in on that?
Because if you know, like, one of the requirements of hip hop, or the pillars of hip hop, is to just have fun.
Right.
If most people didn't know that,
But that's not how it started.
it's not how it started.
And I think
but
that
like
that's-
Two Teeps has said,
You stray
that's how it's
further
going
and
to end
further
up.
away.
Because you stray further and further away, because you, how do you assimilate more and more and more into the culture, and then you find yourself
But it's
in
not a
this weird
culture.
situation.
But that's the danger. Then it's not a culture. I think people.
No, but that is
But
that,
that's
that,
what
that,
it's
that is
It's a
to-
lifestyle,
that-
but is it really a culture if it's not growing something? If people are actually
I mean,
being.
But to a certain extent, it continues to exist. That is a culture in and of itself.
I guess
because
when
it's
you
like
say-
pulling something out of you.
It's the
And
culture
I
that's
of
guess
why-
when
no
you
culture.
say culture, I think
culture
of
of no culture.
Culture
I
of no
think of
culture,
I think literally the scientific.
Well, it's the culture of parasites.
Can I? That's what I was gonna say. If you say culture in that capacity, I think of like a scientist trying to populate a bunch of bacteria in a petri dish and call it culture, because that's where I think the concept of culture actually comes from here in the West, like trying to grow certain bacteria to like a huge amount, amass it, because that's what they were always trying to do. So in that context, I do get it. But I did want to say the point too, Martin Luther King having the dream. He only had the dream when he was stuck here. They never talk about when he left and came back. He said, "I was sadly mistaken."
That's I
Never
was going
fucking
there
mind.
next. I'm glad you mentioned it, because a lot of people don't notice that I've noticed that people don't have a clear context of history properly, because when you hear people talk about Martin Luther King, they only ever mention the "I Have a Dream" speech. Most people. And they always talk about his assassination and they link it to the "I Have a Dream" speech,
Yeah.
which is completely wrong.
Yeah.
He was assassinated after he made a speech against the "I Have a Dream" speech, saying,
Right.
"I led my people into a burning building."
Right. And he
When he
started
started to
hitting
look
against the
at
war.
things differently and started to be like, okay, maybe we should just get the fuck out of here. That's when they assassinated him, because he was going against the system.
Well, that's
Goes
And-
with the movie.
that goes.
he started talk because a lot of these leaders, when they die, if you notice the point where they die, like you're mentioning, it's when they start talking about human rights. Sometimes they can get caught up in the black and white. When they start out, it's more about black and white, black and white. As soon as they start talking about, like, wait a minute, because there's a story about Martin when he went to jail, and there was like a white warden or something like that, or a guard, and they started having a conversation, and he heard like how much the guy get paid. He's like, shit, man, you should be marching with us. And that's kind of like when he start to like recognize like this is not like purely a black and white thing. This is a human being thing. And once you start going down that path, that's when you actually start to become a threat. When you start to pierce the veil of some of the isms, racism being one of the big ones.
Well, the thing is, and piggybacking off of the point that you guys are making, and that's what I really took away from the third viewing today, is the fact that they thought, because that's the thing that they talk about the whole film, the whole movie, the only thing that they're talking about is trying to be free, is trying to get free. And they think that because they've gained some economic upward mobility in terms of gaining the resources, in terms of the alcohol, the liquor, the beer, and then now they're able to come back down to Mississippi, and then now they've gained like the guns, whatever you name it, all of that stuff,
The land.
the
real
the
estate.
land, all of that stuff. They think now they can be free, and that's what ultimately it comes down to, is that economically they think that they're now co-opting, or I'm sorry, culturally they're now co-opting the system in terms of economics, thinking that it will lead them to freedom, and it doesn't. and then now that they're like, okay, so then what's the other aspect of real freedom that you see? And the only person in the film that you can say is free and is not really running away from something is Annie. And it's Annie because she's like, no, I have everything I need. Like, and I'm this and I'm that, and I am who I am. And that's why they're so upset when they kill Annie, because she's really the one aspect, or I'm sorry, the one person out of all of them that's really free. Because Mary's looking for acceptance.
Little mixed ass.
Stack is secretly wanting, like, you know, to be with Mary, but he can't because of like the notions of like the societal. That's why he's so afraid to be seen talking to her. But he really cares about her, really wants to be with her, really loves her.
He looks out for her.
He
but
really looks out
can't
for
let
her.
Everybody know.
And then Smoke, that's why he tells Sammy, ultimately, he's like, no. He's like, if you can do it, go and do it this way. That's the only way. Because that's what they're all seeking, is they're seeking that freedom. And because they think that the economic freedom will bring them that freedom, and then it doesn't, that's when he's like, we're not actually free.
Moving on up to the top. That comedy with George Jefferson.
Yeah,
'Cause
somebody
you
was
think
like,
you've made it because you're not at the top of the building.
But it's also, that's
You're
the thing.
even more
is that
trapped.
It's the other form of the parasitic society.
yes.
The other form of the parasitic society is the economics.
Exactly.
And that's why at the end of the day, the white men are coming back to take it from them. Because they're like, no, it's ours.
Or they just change
Because
the rules.
it's still parasitic in that sense. And that's why that conversation with Remick and Stack and Smoke, where he's like, y'all aren't free. Like, you guys aren't good. You guys think you're gonna be good, but they're coming to take it from you, and they could take it from you whatever they want. And this is the only thing you can have that won't allow it to be taken from you.
Yeah.
But then in actuality, all it is then you just become one of the worst versions
The worst
of the
parasite.
thing that they're saying that they're not. So it's ultimately about the only thing that allows you to remain free and maintain yourself is to maintain your identity.
Yeah.
Boom. Blood clot.
Fire.
And the identity is the spiritual predisposition, the ancestral veneration, the ancestral practices. So that's it. Because I was sitting there and I was like, you would have put the nail in the coffin and perfected it, in my opinion, in terms of from a filmmaking, a storytelling perspective, if possibly Smoke would have went back to Africa. But the thing is that Smoke was so far gone.
I mean,
in
he
terms of
technically did, though.
Yeah, but he did. Yeah, you're right. He did to a certain extent. But I'm saying,
Wait,
like,
how?
bringing it because he chose to die and he
chose to
went with
die.
Annie.
But you said
He's
Africa.
in the spiritual realm.
Because he went with Annie.
He went to Africa?
That
No, like in the symbolic sense.
in the symbolic,
In the symbolic
sense,
sense.
the culture, Annie represents the culture and the
Right.
traditions. and
Because Annie
spirituality.
is
That's
the
African.
culture.
Yeah,
She
but
never let it go.
no, I know, but they didn't go to Africa though.
He went
No,
to
no,
her.
no, he went
so
to her.
in a sense, she represents what he really needed to
Yes.
be actually free. And his freedom was in death, because he can actually go and be with her.
Yes, no, I get that. It's just that going to his point about going to Africa. Now that you say that, I can say this too. People apparently, I need to do more research on this, but on another podcast that same podcast, he was saying that there were Hispanics that were mad at this film because they're like, we didn't have representation. And then there were also Africans who were just felt similarly. And I think as Durrel was speaking, I was just like, what's more important? Like representation or symbolism? Like, what are we getting so stuck on that we have to have our faces in everything? And then the symbols can get lost because now you're missing it. You're not seeing the interconnectedness of things.
I don't understand the Hispanic. The Hispanic part that's just some bullshit. The African part I don't understand because, like he said, Annie represents that.
Yeah.
True, but
like,
she wasn't
it's a
the
film
concept.
about
Yeah.
a specific period in history
Mm-hmm.
with a specific group of people and their experiences coming from a specific group of people.
Right.
So, to me, it represents us all, and
Right.
it's an all-encompassing thing. So I don't really understand it. I think people on social media just are really lost in their world because they're trying to find like some kind of like thing to make them feel good about themselves, and they're like living in a fantasy la la land. So they just find things to complain about. Honestly, if I'm being real. Because I don't think any real like African who's probably seen the movie is gonna see a problem with the movie.
That's true.
I mean, even that, what you're talking about, is like what the movie's about. Like, oh shit, I didn't see my face. I wasn't represented. Like, you missed it.
Yeah.
Because to me, the movie is showing also the interwovenness of just human beings. You have the Chinese, you have just different aspects of. This is an Irish man, right, who got caught up in evil. And now he's turning other people
Evil.
evil. So, like, it's kind of like bringing the movie down to like a very low place. You're missing it again because
Yeah.
you're making it about race,
Yeah.
just purely on a racial thing.
And then there are people who are taking it and be like, yeah, this is our movie. This is a Black American movie. That's our perspective. Once again, on the
yeah, it's
other
like
end of missing.
too
Too far gone.
to either side. So it's like,
And to prove a point more again, those kind of people are the ones who, again, they won't get it. Again, to me, going back to Africa is not necessarily always a physical perspective. It's also a mental thing.
Yeah.
For those kind of people, they just won't get it. For the Hispanic people, they're living in a fantasy land. And doesn't even make sense to me with any African being upset at the movie. But if they are, then they're also living in a fantasy land. And those are the Africans who are trying to be more like the people outside of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Because that exists. We have to be honest. That
Yes.
really exists.
Yeah.
Because evil is evil, colonialism is colonialism. It
Yeah.
takes territory. It's a vampire system. It turns people into vampires every day.
Right.
That's just the reality.
Yeah. And like,
and then you become a vampire. Vampires turn other people into vampires, and so on and so forth.
yeah. But I was even going to say that too. It's funny because like the people that are like, this is our movie. The director literally said he studied two white twins to help inform.
He had the two white twins on set as like a twins consultant.
Yeah, his
in terms
friend.
of the
yeah.
way that like twins function.
Those were his homies too. Like those were his actual friends that he brought them in. But the film, he said, was like for his uncle.
Yeah, he said that the film was inspired by his uncle, who used to listen to blues music all the time.
Yes.
Because he was on an interview with the Breakfast Club, and he was saying like he was listening to Young Dolph at the time
Yeah.
when young Dolph was murdered, and he said that like music has that ability to like take you places and to do things and things like that. Because I mean, at the end of the day, I'll make this point, and then we got to move to rapid fire or slow burn. Because I know we have a few topics and we take a long time to get through that. Is that music is spirituality. So it's like, at the end of the day, music is spiritual in the sense of you play music when you're trying to communicate to things. That's why even when you look at what sing is in French, it's like enchante, because you're trying to get things in another dimension to pay attention to you. So you're attempting to enchant something. You're attempting to gain something by chanting.
That's gonna go over a lot of people's heads.
Yeah, it is, but it's fine. Because what it ultimately comes down to is that it's a practice that you use for a very specific purpose in order to pierce beyond the mystery of death. And that is why when Remick is about to turn Sammy, he says, "You will taste the sweetness of death, and we will make beautiful music together."
Boy, before you go to rapid fire, amazing, again, amazing movie, great movie. If you haven't seen it, sorry we ruined it for you. Please go and see it. So much in that movie.
Yeah, there's probably layers in there that even if you go watch it after this, that you can pick up on. Because
I'm sure I'm gonna watch it again. I'm gonna pick up on a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, because it's deep.
Yeah,
man.
That's you know.
Because I really didn't catch the twins' names. That's hilarious.
Yeah, Elias and Elijah.
Which is
And
funny.
then when you look it up, it's derivatives of the same name.
Mm-hmm.
Like Elias is a derivative of Elijah, in the sense that the name Elias, a variant of Elijah, means my God is Yahweh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Elias
And-
is
and
usually
Elijah-
Spanish, I think.
I think Elijah was actually the one who was the teacher and the protector of Elias, which Elijah being Smoke, Elias being Stack. You see how that relationship played out throughout the entire movie. Him being the bigger brother, and Stack being the younger brother.
But if you
Amazing.
notice, the only ones that use their real names in the films are Mary and Annie. Annie says it to Smoke when they're at her hut.
Mm-hmm.
She says, "Elijah," and then that's when he tells her for real, like, "Yeah, okay, well, you want me to tell you the truth? I love you, and I miss you,
Mm-hmm.
and being here hurts." And then when Mary comes back in after she's been turned into a vampire, and then she calls out to Stack, who's playing poker or whatever he's doing, she says, "Elias." And then he gets up with no question. And then just goes. And then he's like, and then she shows him the gold. And then he goes with her. So there's only 2 instances in the movie that I can recall where their names are spoken, and it's by Annie to Smoke, who's Elijah, and by Mary to Elias, who's Stack. It's by their women, and that's it.
It's interesting that Mary is the partner of Stack, and she's the one who turns him into a
The
vampire,
vampire.
and he becomes the one to become immortal at the end.
Well, she even says it, and then we really need to end this.
Bro, honestly, we could talk about this for
we do this all night. We can do this all
longer,
night.
bro. There's so much
But
in this movie we could break down.
That's why she says to him she's talking to Sammy, and she's at the bar, and before Smoke walks up, and she goes, the twins nursed. I'm sorry, my mama delivered the twins.
Yes, that part.
And after she delivered the twins and their mama died, my mama nursed the twins. And then they never so much as sent her flowers while she was alive. And then Smoke is like, "No, we sent her flowers. We sent her a lot of flowers. A lot of flowers that she smelled too." And then it moves on. But there's so much in terms of like layers and alluding to so many other things, because there's so many religious aspects at play, because Mary is the virgin, but then it also speaks to like the twins and the
husband, the wife, the child.
the husband, the wife, the child, the Holy Trinity. Like there's
And
so
that's
much.
That's when he dies.
Yeah, there's so
that
much.
was-
There's so
Right,
much
so
in there.
that's interesting.
Even
too.
the vampires, though. I know we gotta cut. I just want to make this one point, because we're going all out today. The vampires.
So we're taking it.
We're taking it there.
Yeah.
Even the vampires, being the system and representing evil. A lot of the times, what most people miss with Christianity being a part of the system of colonization and enslavement, when you give up on your ancestral practice, Christianity removes the concept or the idea of reincarnation.
Yep.
The vampires can't die, meaning they can't reincarnate,
Right.
which means they are literally wandering forever and always trying to take territory and take over bodies and take over people. Culturally, in an African spiritual context, that's like what we would call like a wandering spirit. And wandering spirits are always trying to seek and take over even the pregnancies of people who are alive, to then be able to taste
Or
life again.
parasitically suck energy from people that are
Exactly.
alive.
And
And that's why
you can
crazy.
see why they wanted Sammy, because he represents that life.
he represents, yeah.
And he represents them being able to then taste life again.
And he
being
also
able
had
to-
that power.
Uh-huh.
But then the interesting thing is that ultimately, when you really look at Remick is a wandering spirit or
Uh-huh.
like an evil entity,
Mhm.
because none of them can sing until Remick turns them.
Mhm.
No one sing. None of the white people can sing.
Mhm.
The white people don't sing until Remick turns them.
Mhm.
And that's why when they come up and they're trying to gain entry into the sawmill, and then they're singing, Stack is like, that wasn't bad. And then even I think Cornbread is like, yeah, that wasn't bad. Like, yeah, them they weren't bad at all.
They got some vocals.
And then literally Smoke is like, no, get the fuck out of here. Because it's like, you can see that it's the cultural appropriation of the parasites. The parasites are attempting to make themselves look like they're just like the original people, and then they're singing.
Right.
And that's why when Mary comes out and then she sees them singing, she's like, yeah, that wasn't bad. Yeah, I think I am kind of like these people.
Mhm.
And then they're like, but we're not.
Yeah.
Because they even take turns. You could kind of see like Remick is kind of looking at them, like Remick is looking at the two other white people because of the way like the white lady kind of gives it away when she like touches Mary on her shoulder. And then the other white dude does something where Remick kind of looks like, damn, like you guys are, because Remick is the most charming out of all of them.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
giving it away.
Like
He's
they kind of
advanced.
give it away, and Remick knows how to manipulate and maneuver and draw the people in, because he always knows the right thing to say, because he's always like, yeah, I know what you want, I know what you need, I can sense it, I can see it. And then that's why he even comes up and is like, no, like, sir, I'm all about equality, so on and so forth. So he is that like sweet talking devil. He is that sweet talking genie that knows like, oh, I can feed off of this person in this regard. As long as I feed into this, I can grab this from the person as long as I do that, and so on and so forth. So there's so much in there, and we'll be here doing this
Just
all
feeding off
night.
that
I mean,
energy.
we're,
I
if we're
wonder
gonna
what the
go,
significance of the coins were, but
The
What do you
gold
mean?
coins.
The
That-
coins,
gold coins, because it shows that it's from a time and a place that precedes anything that they could be
Right.
having right then and there.
that's true. She was
Because it's gold.
Mm-hmm.
Because it literally, the spiritual significance of gold
Mm-hmm.
is that there's only a finite amount of gold, because golds come from the gods, they come from the divine, and gold in and of itself represents like blood of the gods. So you can only find it
Wow.
within certain aspects of the earth.
We're giving away too much.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
End it there.
It's fascinating. My dad used to tell me in Ghana, like, you didn't have to dig for gold. It
No,
was just
it
like
just
on
would
the
be.
shore. Digging
It'd
for
just
gold
be.
was like a strange thing to do.
You know
'Cause,
why?
Like even the term galamse that you guys have hearing, it's not a bad thing. It means gather and collect and share. That's what that word means. So galamse, finding gold together, isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's when you start mining it that it became a problem. And then they use that term galamse to like name it after that, but that's not even galamse that's really happening if you're using the correct term.
That happened because, damn, we gotta go into it. So once you stop living on a certain land and living in harmony with it, and having the proper dialogues and exchange with the nature and the divinities that are there, and the genies and the entities that are there, then those things start to hide away from you. But if you are living in accordance to those things, then abundance, wealth, and those things will reveal themselves. It's almost like the non-material. If you know how to charm it, like he was saying, the singing is a way to charm. Let's say like how we drum, we do ceremonies, we do all these different things. If you know a certain entity or divinity's beat, then you know how to bring certain abundance and certain things around to you. But since we stopped doing those things, now we have to dig it and mine it, and now it's destructive to the earth.
Well, that's
But-
a normal way of existing.
Yeah.
And that's even the thing is like the money even represents the economic prosperity or the upward mobility of the economics. But in actuality, money in and of itself is just, or money as we know it, is just a knockoff of the spiritual representation of what is considered currency, which is cowrie shells, which is something that nature would give you as a reward of your ability to fit into it and your ability to harmonize and align with it by saying like, here, this is for you because you function in this capacity, you move in this manner. So then it's like a reward or a token or an appreciation of sorts, whereas that the money becomes the other thing that they now then aren't able to then utilize, thinking that they're going to be free. And that's what it is. At the end of the day, everyone is seeking some sort of freedom from their state to a certain extent. Like everyone is looking to somehow free themselves from the state that they're in. Delta Slim is looking to free himself from the state he's in.
Alcohol.
The alcohol.
Mary,
yeah.
right there, that's beer.
Mary is looking to free herself. Smoke and stack.
Everybody
Everyone.
sitting on Delta Slim. You drunk ass, shut up.
Yeah.
Like it goes hand in hand. So let's move into this.
Again, we can
Before
talk
we
about this
end,
all
I
night.
just want to say shout out to the ancestors and all the forces and the material, non-material, because like,
Yeah.
thank you.
Shout out
Thank
to the
you.
brother who the director of the film.
Yeah.
Ryan
did a
Coogler.
good
He wrote and directed
He
it.
wrote
it.
and directed.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
wrote and
Good work.
directed
He
it.
got-
Great job.
Yeah.
Great.
Got a lot of thinking.
Shout out to Ryan Coogler.
Ryan Coogler.
Ryan Cooper.
And
then
you can
also-
tell these guys,
Yeah.
him, Michael B. Jordan, they definitely have a level of understanding
Yeah.
of cultural context and spirituality. And even Michael B. Jordan came out recently and said he's a Babalawo. And he's getting a lot of backlash from that now. People are calling it demonic and all this kind of
Are
stuff.
you serious?
Yeah.
Well, shout out to Michael.
Yeah, shout out to
Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Anybody who's trying to,
actors,
practice
and actress.
ancestral culture,
Yeah.
shout out to you.
Yeah.
Call me a sinner, whatever.
Uh-huh. Nice
Drop the
transition. Oh, so should I wait till you come back?
No, just let's
Okay.
move on with this. So, we're not doing this all night.
We're gonna go into Did You Know? Let me make sure my mic is on. All right.
It's been on this whole time.
I've been. All right. So did you know? This is an interesting Did You Know. So did you know chainsaws were invented for childbirth? The original invention of chainsaws were invented for childbirth.
Okay.
So the design the design of the chainsaw was based on a watch chain with teeth that moved through the use of a hand crank. This meant that although the mother may not have looked down to see her doctor holding a version of the chainsaw, we know today she would instead see her doctor furiously cranking a chainsaw against her pelvic. It was created by two Scottish doctors, John Atkins and James Jeffrey, developed a prototype of the chainsaw familiar today in the timber industry for symphyotomy and the excision of diseased bone. So they literally created the chainsaw during the C-sections that they were trying to yeah. So the did you know is chainsaws were created for childbirth, like C-sections and stuff. And it wasn't until like 1905 that
Yeah, I know.
it wasn't until
Sounds barbaric because it's like.
it wasn't until 1905 when the timber industry took on that technology, and then another doctor kind of was like, we shouldn't do this anymore. But they started to use like a certain type of wire. So yeah, that's the origins of chainsaws.
I'm not surprised at that because you know the origins of like how women even give birth in the States. I'm guessing not just the States, but like Western countries, period. They like lay flat on their back and their legs are like up. That actually came from, I forgot which French king, but there was a French king
Oh, I think you
who
talked about
had like a fetish
For watching
childbirth. So he enforced women to give birth that way, even though it's going against the natural way that you're supposed to give birth, and it actually can cause a lot of problems and complications.
It was for pleasure. He
Yeah,
just wanted to watch it. It
He
wasn't
had
for
a
the women.
fetish. He was jerking off watching them do
Oh,
it,
dear Lord.
and then it became the standard of modern medical system.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy.
It's
So a lot of
insane.
the times when people are having problems pushing, or they have, I forgot what they call it, when like the shoulder gets stuck in
Right,
the
right,
pelvis
right,
bone,
right.
like the babies are hurt, like there's damage.
It's because of the
It's because of the
unnatural-
angle of how they're pushing it and giving birth.
Yep.
It's a very unnatural thing, and then you know what they do after? They give you C-sections,
Yep.
Yes.
which is big money, big bucks.
Yeah.
It's
In
it's
Ghana,
wild, man.
a woman's going to labor, they make her pound fufu. She's pounding fufu until she's like ready to go. But you're cooking. You're standing.
No C-section.
Yep. I mean, listen. All right. So the next one. Insane. Florida woman accused of impersonating an ICE agent to kidnap ex-boyfriend's wife. Sounds like a telenovela. I know. I know.
People are just out here wild, man.
I'm like, should I?
Florida woman.
Okay.
It's like the men are getting a lot of attention. Let me do some crazy shit. What?
Yeah.
There's something in the water in Florida, man.
Oh, yeah, man.
There's always Florida. Something
Yeah,
going
you
on.
watch
over there.
those those like documentaries like Gone Wild or crime stories. Always starts out with like a Florida man. It's like scam city. It's like Scam City.
Or a Bronx man. It's either Florida or the Bronx. I guess I'll just read a little bit of her story.
No, it's okay.
Let's just go
go to the
on.
next
Let's just
one.
go.
She was an ICE agent. She got arrested.
We
Okay. Wait, hold on. Let me just read this part. On April 10th, Battle, that's her name, Battle. Battle, Battle, approached a victim who was working the desk at a Days Inn hotel in Panama City at the time, according to criminal complaint. Battle was dressed in all black with a white face mask. The complaint said when the victim asked if Battle would like a room, Battle unzipped her jacket to reveal the word ICE printed on a black shirt. Battle also showed the victim a sheriff's office card that identified her as an ICE agent and told the victim she had to go with her. The victim didn't want to get in trouble or cause more ICE agents to show up, so she let her boss know what was happening and then willingly left with Battle to the back seat of Battle's car, according to the court document. While in the car, the victim tried to call her husband and her lawyer using her cell phone, but Battle forcibly snatched the phone away and will not give it back. I'm just gonna stop here. I think it gets worse. We don't got all night, so
Babel is. She's She's battling.
I'm curious to know how it ended, though. How did she catch on that she wasn't really an ICE agent?
I find out on your next episode. Let me stop. Do you want me to keep going? I didn't finish reading it, but it looks like it keeps going. Oh boy. Anyway.
That's wild, man.
Next.
She has a lot of time on her hands.
The next one is also a lot of people with a lot of time on their hands because the world's first sperm race winner, Tristan Welcher, gets $10,000 cash prize.
God. Yeah, there's.
I saw this one.
You saw it?
I don't know what to teach someone because you don't even know what to say. By the way, the racetrack I just found out was modeled after a woman's vagina. So
Some people with a lot of money has nothing to do.
they actually used, I think, college students to do this experiment. A lot of investors are looking into this because, once again, you know, bread and circus. This is entertaining. It's a new field. You know what I'm saying? It's
The distractions.
distraction. And they're actually
And-
trying to turn it into a whole, like, health positive thing because the guy who started it, he's an Asian kid who said, we never talk about male fertility in the sense of strength. So this is an approach to the strength.
Ridiculous.
What did you say?
This is ridiculous.
The bread and circus is getting so
Yeah, I mean,
elaborate.
At this point, it's like, holy shit. Like what people are doing.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine the guy who sat there and was like, "Yeah, I want to race my sperm."
I can't believe there are people watching this.
And then there's another guy. It's like, you know what? $10,000 for the guy.
It's a stadium of people watching this, guys. Like, it's a stadium of people. It's like a boxing
So
match.
he get his money for real?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to enter.
Like, what would y'all do if your son did this? Like, like he's celebrating. He got his first and his last name out here as the winner
Like,
of
I'll
the
never
sperm
forget
racing.
me and my friends when we were growing up. We were in high school, and one of my friends was like, we were in high school. I know Roscoe's about to come and turn off the goddamn mics. Like Roscoe's
What are
like,
you
fuck.
talking about?
Roscoe's like, fuck this podcast. Let me out of here. He really is. But anyway, one of my friends who always thought he was like so much more smarter than he is, and he still thinks he's smarter than he is. He was like, "You guys want to make some money? Let's go donate some blood." And so I think I was like talking to my dad, and I was like, "Yeah, we're about to go donate some blood and then get paid, like donate plasma and get paid." And my dad was like, "You guys are losers." And I was like, "What? Why do you say that?" He was like, "You guys are gonna go donate plasma for money?" He's like, "You guys are losers." He's like, "How much money are you gonna get to donate plasma?" I was like, "I think like we get like $40 or $60." My dad's like, "Here's $60." Like you guys are losers. Like, so that's like forever ingrained in my head from being in middle school, and it's like, yeah. So next.
Oh man! Shout out to your pops. He saved the day with that one.
All right, please open the door for Roscoe.
No. I've learned that lesson.
Like,
He'll be okay. He'll be okay.
We're not about to sit here, and he's not gonna stop because
That's fine. It's okay. I think
Let him conjure his ancestors.
he hears you about to
Maybe
let
he'll
him
get
out.
back to
That's-
being a lion or some shit.
It's like,
Okay. So this next one.
y'all having fun, right?
yeah, I'll
'Cause
show
I'm gonna
you.
have to be the one that has to deal with Roscoe's fucking anxiety later.
He's not gonna have
anxiety from that.
anxiety.
It's anxiety and shit.
Really, I'm sorry. Okay. Next, Niger went from 1 billion to $100 billion GDP. I'm not well versed in it. Couldn't really find any articles per se. There was a video where someone was talking about this.
What, gross domestic product?
Yeah,
So
because
it's like an economic term
their uranium. They reclaimed it.
for saying how well a country. It's like a snapshot of how economically well a country is doing.
Well, what it is that it's more so it's more so a way to. I'm telling you, he's not gonna stop. It's a way of. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just let him out because he's not gonna stop, and then he's just gonna be doing that. He's gonna.
Well, you're not gonna stop.
No, because he just woke up, so he's just gonna do that and not stop. But it's a way of measuring a country's, like, what they're producing. He's not by the door.
He actually just stopped.
Yeah, but now he's gonna come back and then be by the door. But anyway, yeah, it's a way of measuring like your, like what you produce. So that's huge. If Niger went from 1 billion to 300 billion GDP, it's gross domestic product, like you said, but it's a way of valuing what you're producing within your country.
Okay, you said uranium.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's power.
Same thing. It's happened with Burkina Faso. It's happened with all of these countries, all of these African countries, because I mean it's like a snowball effect.
Yeah, it's just
with
trickling down.
Ibrahim Traoré,
Ooh.
Yeah.
because now he's like, you guys don't have to do this, right? And
He's
because
leading the
he
way.
led
He's
the
like-
charge, like you guys don't have to do this, then now everyone else is doing it because it's like those countries come into like these corporations that are foreign-based corporations that are coming into Africa from France and from the U.S. and from all these other places. They're coming in and then they're like they're probably greasing the palms of certain people within the country, and then they're taking everything out and then using it to get rich. Whereas that the Chinese and the Russians are coming in to these different countries and they're being like, we just want a piece of it, and you guys keep it, and we'll help you do it. Whereas that the other countries like the France and the U.S. are just like, we're gonna take it and go.
Western countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an old story, man. They take the raw material, like Jamaica. They take the bauxite. They take it somewhere else. They make aluminum from it, and then sell it to you back at I don't know, like 1,000%.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like
And then
if you go to
Just continue
Jamaica,
to suppress you.
yeah, you go to Jamaica right now. You go into like a supermarket, and you go buy a tin foil and paper towel. It's probably like 3 times the price than what you would pay for it here in the States. In Jamaica,
Yeah,
where the minerals material for it is produced. It's
It's-
ridiculous.
it's
It doesn't
crazy,
make any
man.
sense.
It's interesting in an interview that I think it's like Mr. Ghana, like the guy he's like one of the biggest Ghanaian influencers. He went to the tomato.
Walter Maya.
Yes, he went to
That's my
the
guy.
tomato industry factory that's built in Burkina, and he asked, "How did you guys fund this?" He was like, "Oh, this belongs to the children of Burkina. Like, no foreign investors. This was literally the citizens who put money into it. Not just citizens of Burkina, but people who are also outside, but consider themselves citizens of Burkina. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's the people.
The people.
Just the people,
The
yeah.
people. So that was really big.
power to the people.
And all the people working there are young. Like he was mentioning, these are college students, people who've never been to college, people who've never been to school. This is just people, like, and it's a big deal because in Africa, like we're talk about, or all over the world where westernization has taken charge, you got people following standards that are not, natural to where they are. So people are waking up everywhere. Okay. Next topic. Scientists say they have resurrected the dire wolf, right?
I thought we covered this already.
No, we didn't.
Covered this already?
It was no, we didn't cover it. It was missing in last week's, but a species of wolf
These
that
motherfuckers never see Jurassic
Wolf.
Yeah, you know what a dire wolf is, son?
Nah.
Have you ever watched Game of Thrones?
Yes.
You seen the big
big-ass
ass wolves they were
fucking
riding?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those are real creatures.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they resurrected them.
Holy shit, man.
Genetic modification.
So it's not even like the original one from nature. It's like
They took
some-
They took the DNA from like the fossils of them,
Mhm.
and they took the DNA, and then they I think they put it. You can correct me. They put it in a regular wolf, the genomes, and they had the regular wolf carry the babies, and now they were born, and now they're growing at this rapid pace. They're already probably like 3 times the size of a regular
You
wolf.
want to know
It's
how?
almost like we're trying to wipe ourselves out, man.
You wanna
Get
know-
this. Guess what their names are? There's 2 of them. Guess what their names?
Romulus.
Romulus and Remus.
my goodness. Cool. My goodness, I can't.
Talk about
Always
the vampires.
back to the origin.
That's their origins, man. That's their mommy. They trying to get mommy back.
Yeah, they've strayed quite far.
They're trying to stray back. Anyway, did you want to say something before?
Next.
Okay. Speaking of boys and mommies, Kentucky boy uses mom's phone to order 70,000 lollipops, costing $4,000. Quote, he wanted to have a carnival.
How did he get the card?
And guess what?
Amazon.
Yes, it was on Amazon.
These fucking kids.
Some dumb suckers, apparently. That's the name of the lollipop. Amazon had already delivered 22 cases to her house.
Next.
God.
She probably wants her money back. That's probably why.
like,
I wonder if she'll get. She'll have to send all of that back.
Give them too much access
Man,
to
she needs
technology,
to get
man.
to some bodegas and just sell them back to these other businesses. Okay, this one was an interesting story. Speaking of mom and child again, MAGA turns N-word shouting woman into folk hero. Did you guys hear about this story?
A little bit,
Yeah,
somewhat.
a little bit.
So, I mean,
She
I
raised some money and
oh, don't start there. That's not how it started.
okay.
Her
That's the
child
extent of what I heard.
was playing in a park, and there was like a 5-year-old black boy, and I think he took the kid's toy and was playing with it. The mom came, snatched her baby, snatched the toy back, and was calling the little 5-year-old like a nigga, like stupid, like insulted him. And so out with the camera is this, I think he's like a white guy, I don't know, but he's not the child's. It doesn't seem like that's the child's parent. And he's recording this woman saying, what's wrong with you? Why are you insulting a little boy? Are you racist? Da, da, da. She goes, he's a nigga. If he's gonna act like one, I'm gonna call him what it is. And then she just says, nigga, 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 nigga. But she's not saying nigga, she's saying nigger, like, ER. And so what she does,
Nigger.
yeah,
The
literally,
way.
that's
Are you a
exactly,
With a
that's
southern accent.
Them niggas around here.
with her real accent. So what she does is she goes home and she starts something similar to GoFundMe. And
She
she's-
feels threatened
Oh yeah, she says protect my family, and
from
she's
a 5-year-old boy.
no from people who are like
Because it was videoed.
of it.
Oh,
Spread on the internet.
She's raised over $600,000.
God damn it.
600,000
God
over.
damn it. Why can I be a victim?
Well,
Why can I allow myself to be a victim?
Wow.
Let me say that. Why can I allow myself to be one? Because these motherfuckers. It's like, what?
yeah, you don't want that money, man.
$600,000, bro.
Blood money.
What? What the fuck?
Damn, man. Like,
What do you think about this, Sed? Because I saw a video on this, right? And it was I don't know what news outlet, but it was Pierce Morgan. I think Fit from the Fresh and Fit podcast, a couple other people, and there's this one white lady who was speaking in support of this lady who was saying the nigger. And they were like, so what you're basically saying is it's okay for her to say nigger? And Pierce Morgan asked her, so would you say nigger? And she said, well, in the right context, in the right time, yeah. So he was like, so are you blatantly saying right now that you're a racist? And she was like, yeah. She was like, she feels like we've become living into a time where black people are always talking about racism. Black people are always saying this, always saying that, and always playing victim. But it's to a point where white people have no voice. White people can't say anything, and no one can say anything in the media without offending black people or gay people. So now she's coming out and is calling for people, white people, to support other white people. So she's supporting this lady who raised $600,000. So when they asked her, is she going to be a racist? She said, yeah, because I'm calling for white people to support other white people. I think it's interesting because we've come to a point in this country where racial tensions have become so high. So high. And I'm not saying I agree with her, but I understand where she's coming from in the point where you can't have what we were talking about the sinners. You can't be in a system that is designed a certain way and functions a certain kind of way and try to make the system function another way to appease one group of people and neglect another group of people and then not see the other group of people kind of retaliate rebel or react. So now we're seeing white rebellion.
Because it's
in white system. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, because it's built that way. That's how it was designed. That's how it was. Because that's a big point. Because if you think you're gonna be here and not end up sucked into this one way, shape, or form, it's a very difficult thing to do. Because even the white people are finding a way to become a victim. It's like
it's the spread of evil.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
It's like,
and
I
prefer
victim too.
Yeah,
I'm a bigger victim.
Right. I prefer to see it bluntly like that because now, in a way, to me, we don't have to play these games anymore. We know what this really is.
Yeah, it's there's some honesty there. There's some honesty there for sure, and definitely, if you look at politics, it plays a lot into that too. So it's like at the very top, it's being used as a vice. And, you know, if you're not able to, like we're initiates, we can see and pierce what's actually happening. And a lot of that rhetoric is coming from, like, you hear the politicians and it's like what they call dog whistle politics. You know what I mean? Like the racists know themselves and they just act accordingly. And it's just being suppressed. But it's the tension is there.
It's a bubble.
Yeah, because you have people like some time ago they were like in the woods practicing for like race wars and shit like that. And then you have preppers, people digging bunkers and shit and stacking up canned goods. So, you know, there's a real tension going on that's not really being addressed or talked about.
Yeah, Jim Crow and all of that wasn't even 100 years ago yet.
Exactly. So it's that movie that we're talking about, like, highlights a lot of these things.
Exactly.
Because, you know, like, somebody always says, like, where did the capes go from the KKK? They never burned them, so
where are they?
Where are they? And, you know, some say it's like, it just looks different. It looks like the court system or the justice system.
It's the credit system.
Or
it's
the
credit
housing system. Because even if you look at how much people of color are locked, black people, are locked away for like minor offenses and shit. So
yeah, I think I forgot the statistic, but like black people are technically like 14% of the population, right?
Yeah,
but are 80% of the prisons or something like that?
Yeah, are filled with black people. So it's tension that's building, and the system creates that because that's how it's designed.
I think it was interesting because it reminds me of what was talked about last podcast about the wealth being distributed. Like she just amassed like over 600,000
Yeah, who
from
donated?
this, you know. So
Who
the
donated?
internet is playing
Who donated?
Exactly.
MAGAs.
Somebody is supporting that.
People are supporting it.
Well, all she did was tell a nigger he's a nigger.
No,
There's
there-
nothing wrong with him. No, he's a nigger. He need to know his planes because this right here is Southern Town.
All right.
We don't take too kindly to you stealing toys of the little white boy. You know what I'm saying?
It just goes to show that at the end of the day, people just like people don't have the barometer of what people consider favorable is just so different. Like like people don't give a fuck. Like other people just want to see their side win. That they're just like the barometer of what they consider good is just so different for everybody.
It's true.
It's arbitrary.
Economically, you see how people care because you get to see how people really vote with their funds.
Speaking of
See where they
economics,
stand for real.
yeah.
I stand here with my white people.
All right.
How many more topics do we have?
Well, I'm going to go to the next one. We'll move fast. So, China's deep economic crisis, a trade war that it cannot win. So, I'm just going to read this a little bit and we could just talk about it a little bit. So, Trump has forced China into a tariff war that it can neither afford nor win. The timing could not have been worse for Beijing, given its economic fragility. So, what this article talks about is that while China is, has experienced like their economy growing, especially 5% for the year of 2024, and it seems like it's a good thing. It's actually what it appears to be stable, but it's actually uncertain because foreign investors are pulling out of China. The youth unemployment is rising fast. Big real estate companies are collapsing, and prices at both factories and shops are steadily falling. And so it's saying like China has like a growth story that no longer adds up. And so what do you guys think about that? With what you know about China, do you think this is true? Do you think this is kind of like they don't know what they're talking about?
I thought China was doing well.
I mean,
What's well?
Yeah, that's
here's my thing on it is this.
that's a good question.
I can't really. I'm not Chinese. I'm not in China. I don't really know. But from my understanding of my perspective on it, I think China has a very strong culture in the sense that they hold very steadily to the identity and the idea of being Chinese, to the point where, like, a lot of people don't know this, but China is a country that's actually full of tribes and clans too. Mm-hmm. They have many different languages, many different ethnicities, but at some point those things all collapsed and came together as one thing, where they have this idea that all Chinese are Chinese, regardless.
Right.
So I think that strong cultural kind of like sense and identity is part of the reason why you see like the rise China has had in the past couple years. And whatever this trade war is and whatever it's doing to China, I think China has some kind of plan. I don't think China really is letting the world know fully what's actually going on with China.
Yeah.
I don't see why it would. I think China is a country that's very to themselves in terms of like what they want to put out, because
You think it's strategic?
it might be, it might not be. Who knows? But I personally don't think that we will fully understand and know what the fuck is really going on in China. Unless maybe you live there, probably.
I do see China in a lot of like places they weren't before, like in places in Africa, even in the Caribbean. They're building roads and bridges and things like that.
But it could be because they're not doing well. But it also could be because they're doing well.
Well, as the article continues to say, the thing is, China has this structural problem that's going downhill because they have factories that can't afford to shut down, right?
Who put this article out? That's really the
Well, I
question.
mean, they're observing China in the sense of, like, if you know China, then you know that they went through generations where they decided, nah, we're not going to be poor no more. And so they set a lot of rules in their society that prioritize productivity over a lot of things, like even the way their family structured, like how many children you can have.
I remember
Yeah,
there was
and
a
the
thing
way
with boys and girls.
boys, what happened to some of the children, they literally had an act that was like a one-child rule or something like that, if I'm
Right.
not mistaken.
That's why they're in other places, though.
True.
That's one reason.
But what this article is pointing out is that many of these educated Chinese have joined, have children that now consider themselves professional children. Like they live and depend on their parents and are unable to find jobs and
Professional
build.
children.
They're like, they got money.
What, they're like
the first
educated
I've ever
or
heard that.
the children of the elites?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they go to the offices of their parents, like they have a certain status, right?
So it's like they've made it economically, but everything else is collapsing.
Yes.
So in a
In
sense,
some
it goes back to
ways.
what we were talking about in the movie as to
Right.
why the Chinese were the first ones to burn.
Right. You can only give so much. Like you give away pieces of yourself to fit in to this, for lack of a better word, globalization
And the
or this
demand.
growth in technology. Because
Well, I'm just interested to see what the hell is going to happen in these 4 years.
Yeah.
because the continent is rising clearly, and a lot of these Western powers, that's how they built their wealth, either off human equity, like enslavement and so on, or the minerals. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this plays out.
Speaking of the continent rising,
No, let's
he
keep
don't.
going.
I
Okay,
feel like you had something to say. I want to hear what
No.
you had to say.
but
No,
No.
because I know a lot of them are going to be similar, so then we can put them together so that we don't have to
clash.
yeah.
So speaking of the
China should have
continent
been
rising, yes. Tanzania bans U.S. dollar.
Oh, you don't say.
So basically, you'd have to convert your money to like trade to buy things. You can't use the U.S. dollar, and this was like in retaliation of what's going on with U.S. pulling out investments from Africa.
Interesting.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I guess a lot of people. Well, we heard of like Brexit, like those countries pulling together to just like have their own currency, and you have also crypto and all those things rising. So a lot of countries want their independence. So it makes sense.
Yeah, Africa is not playing the crybaby.
Yeah, it's like we got a brain too, and we gonna use it.
Yeah. Okay. Next topic. Unemployed man robs bank for $1 to receive medical care in jail.
What?
These are the times we're in.
Man, I don't even know how. What? Yeah, like I don't even know what say, like,
Yep. So it's gonna be rapid for real. Chinese suppliers are now going online to expose all luxury brands. So they're going into the math of things. They're like, this is, if you want to create this bag, come to us. We work with Chanel, la la la, this brand, that brand, that brand. The reason why you're paying is because you're paying for their logo. And so they're now exposing.
oh, okay. So what, these brands are also made in China, but they're like acting like they're exclusive or something?
It always was, yeah. I mean, they're all
I'm
made.
50-50 on this. I must say I'm 50-50 on this because there's certain materials that certain brands have that are exclusive. Like it's exclusive to the brand. And that's the reason why you pay much more is because of the exclusivity of the material and the source of it. Now, there's no doubt that at some point it goes and is like manufactured somehow to China, but not necessarily the material itself is coming from China. I think that's where, cause like leather, for example, like a lot of the leather for luxury brands actually comes from Nigeria.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes, but it's probably then sent to China just for them to probably piece together, but then probably sent to Italy for them to do the final touches and then put their brand logo and branding and blah 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 and so and so. So in a way, I get it what China's saying, but to me, what if that is also a tactic in which they're using to try and destabilize the American market
Oh,
to
the
stop people
brands.
from like shopping with certain brands in America to now shop exclusively with China. You see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Could be.
Could be a
a
possibility.
propaganda.
Yeah, who knows?
Campaign.
Because propaganda is the name of the game
It's funny.
nowadays.
I was watching this and I was just like, Americans, like, what are we going to do? DIY? Things like the production, the structure for production in this country is like, it needs work, right? And there's some places that have that, like some industries, but when it comes to designer bags, you know what I'm saying? I think the people that will benefit from that the most are the people who have the resources. And they're like, oh, word, China? All right, let me, you know what I'm saying? Let me be smart about this. So this, I think, quote unquote, third world countries hearing this would take a different approach than Americans, like seeing that and getting all rattled up. But, you know, I think this country's just good at spreading information and making things popular to make things now, like, drift into other parts of the world.
It's just a marketplace.
Exactly.
That's all it
That's
is.
exactly what it is.
And I feel like China is just trying to, in some way, hold on to the marketplace without saying they're trying to hold on to the marketplace.
Yeah.
Because like if you're a producer, you need consumers.
And that's
Exactly.
exactly what I was
That's the
saying
thing.
earlier.
So-
they have the production, but they need demand.
So it's interesting because here you have one country doing a lot of the production, and then you have another country or other places doing the consuming. They're really interdependent. So it's kind of like, what's really going on?
Right.
Because the two kind of need each other.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Next rapid fire. We ready? Okay. Biomilk, lab-grown breast milk. A Bill Gates-funded company files for this bankruptcy. So they can't make biomilk no more.
Bankruptcy doesn't necessarily mean you can't do something anymore.
It just means you can't pay your debt.
So you go
Usually,
into debt.
or you're trying not to pay your debt. You're trying to.
Why are you in debt if it should be profitable?
No,
'Cause it's
Well-
no. Debt. You gotta understand.
They write it off.
Yeah.
and start again. Usually what they do, from what I've seen, is like the wealthy or people with businesses, sometimes they rack up a lot of debt and they can't like pay for it. So they file a chapter something or other, bankruptcy. And it doesn't mean they're broke. Let's say they have $1 million in assets and their debt is like 5 million. They'll like write it off, but they still have their money. So that company may still
Have money.
what they do, they just rebrand themselves and like figure out a way. But biomilk, why were they like? I didn't even know that was a business.
lab grown breast milk.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Why wouldn't Bill Gates do this? Like, this sounds like something he would invest in.
Well, because they say the breast milk of humans is the most, how do you say it? Complex and also the most beneficial for a human to consume.
Right.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't make sense for them to start getting a bunch of women with breast milk to start putting them in farms and milking them. So
yeah.
somehow they're gonna create it.
So
I'm telling you,
was there a shortage?
Is a weird society.
Yeah,
bro.
man. Was there
This
a
is
shortage
sick
of breast
place.
milk? Or like,
It gets worse in the next
No,
one.
bro, it's for people to drink. Like, you can buy breast milk on the black market. Like
There are
people who
people-
work out, people
yeah.
who like are like athletes and shit like that. Like it's a thing.
I did hear about that. Like it's a higher grade protein or something if you
Yes.
want to build muscle.
Yes.
You want muscles that bad.
Muscles,
Oh, right.
regenerative health, mental
Yeah.
clarity. Like it's a thing.
Yeah, people also use breast milk in like salves and stuff for their babies to like regrow things or like to help soothe. So people are probably reaching it for those benefits. Yeah. All right. Next crazy topic. Speaking of mommy and baby.
How many more do we have?
First, there's only 2 more left. It's all right. You guys be all right. First miracle baby born in UK to a woman with a transplant womb. So,
Whose womb she got?
her sisters, her sister
So
donated,
doesn't want children.
her sister donated her womb to her. Wait, you want to put the mic? You want to use the mic, Kajasri?
No, I was just
Transplanted womb.
Her sister.
say this.
Lightning and
Lightning
thunder.
and thunder. Fire.
Brimstone and fire.
We got 2 Jamaicans on the podcast. But yeah.
Man.
Can we get a word from you, Tutipsa?
About
A transplanted womb.
You gotta give a word.
I'm
Come
pretty
on.
sure he's like checked out. He's like fuck off.
Nah, we can't check out now. We got.
no, I'm not checked out. I'm just like, what?
Why?
Like yeah, like these,
Why?
like all of these, like there's like there's nothing you can do to save any of these people that we're talking about.
Lightning and thunder.
Can you imagine the spiritual ramifications?
Man.
There's nothing to say about some of these things because there's nothing to.
It's interesting.
There's no insight you can give to help
So who's the father?
some of these people.
Who's the
Listen,
father?
I don't
Probably
know.
wasn't even mentioned.
Who's the father besides the father who gave the birth?
I don't know. All right.
Oh
next
my
topic.
God, that baby has no spirit.
Global marches in support
what do you call
of
it?
Captain
A mutant.
All right, we're not gonna slow burn this one. The globe marches in support of Captain Ibrahim Traore, and it spreads across the continent. So apparently, even like countries like Senegal have decided they've shocked the ECOWAS, and I think they're deciding to like join forces with Burkina Faso in terms of currency, the CFA. So
Yeah, I mean, when you look at what's happening, in terms of like what Ibrahim Traoré is leading the charge on, I think that you're seeing in real time the fact that like these colonial powers have been able to maintain themselves on leverage for so long, and that leverage is through economics and through colonization and imperialism in terms of usurping natural resources from these resource-rich countries that are so-called third world countries. What you're seeing is in real time in terms of people taking back their power. And once we started talking about GDP, I started looking up the GDP of Burkina Faso and the GDP of Niger and the GDP of these countries when we were talking about it. And then there's also, I'm on the world, it's called Worldometer, the website, and it gives you the population of continents or countries in real time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been watching this for the past like 20 minutes. China's population is declining
Yes.
in real time. Like you're seeing the population go
That's
down.
a fact.
Africa's population, but Asia's population is going up.
Yep.
Okay. Asia and Africa's population is going up. There's a birth every second, every second, every second, every second, every second. Asia and Africa. The United States population only grows every 17 seconds, 18 seconds. Other than that, it remains constant.
You know,
That's
this is
interesting.
gonna be interesting. This is gonna be
Because with all the immigration
interesting.
situations, it makes me wonder like what's really going on there too.
White people's birth rates are declining.
Yes,
Yeah, but
that has been the case for a while. Because I think
the point being is that to encapsulate everything that we've covered over the course of rapid fire or slow burn is that we are literally seeing things happen in real time where the system as we know it, because the system, you guys got to understand that the system doesn't only exist in the West. The system also exists in these other countries. And that's how they maintain themselves in terms of the West remaining prevalence, in terms of the modernity that spreads to all of the different parts of the world. But what you're seeing is you're seeing things fall apart, because if China is doing what it's doing in terms of undercutting these companies like Chanel, Dior, Louis Vuitton, Lululemon, like all of these super popular brands, and they're showing you like it costs $10 to make this bag, you're paying $200 for. It costs $13 to make this shoe that you're paying $200 for, so on and so forth. Or it costs $10 to make this bag that you're paying $10,000 for, or you're paying $20,000 for. What's going, and what I think what you're seeing happening in real time is that everything is collapsing. Like there's no way for one aspect to maintain itself and then for another aspect to continue to thrive. Now, if America is not careful, because what you're seeing happening is whatever war Trump is trying to start with China, it's mutually assured destruction.
Yep.
There's no way America comes out on top in a trade war with China, because China is the world's biggest producer in terms of industrial factories, in terms of producing things, and America is the world's biggest consumer. So it's a symbiotic while equally parasitic relationship. So you can't have one fall without the other in that regard. So I think what you're seeing is people are looking at what the alternatives are, and Ibrahim Traoré is presenting an alternative that maybe people didn't think was possible.
Yep.
You know, Master Naba said one time that Africa is the future because what was in the beginning has to be what is in the end. And I think we're coming to a point where we're starting to see that, because I've been following like the populations for a while, and we can see Africa has the youngest population in the world, and it continues to rise. That's why you would see people like Bill Gates, people who are into eugenics, people who are basically Nazis, don't want to call themselves Nazis, go to Africa and go to India and other Southeast Asian countries. I say Southeast Asia specifically, not just Asia, because when we're talking about them going to certain countries, we're talking about them going to the global south.
Right.
They go to these places in particular because the populations seem to be rising, and it seems to be young and fresh and thriving. So when you have energy that's young, fresh, and thriving, you can see that it represents a state of renewal. So whatever the old guard is, or whatever the old world that we're living in currently now is already diminishing based on natural principles. That's another reason why they have to do all this immigration shit in America, and why they're kicking out Mexicans and trying to talk about Mexicans and trying to talk about Hispanics and this and that. Because if you didn't know, you didn't understand, if you missed it, the people who we call Native American, the people who they killed off to claim these lands,
Right.
the indigenous people, are the fucking Mexicans. Texas, the entire state of Texas, California, all of that was goddamn Mexico.
Yeah, I think that's what the
Until they
Spanish
friggin' annexed that shit.
American War was about.
So
What
it
is-
makes sense that population, they've been saying this for years now, for a couple years, the Hispanic population, but they never say what kind of Hispanic they're talking about. The Hispanic population seems to be on the rise because based on natural principles and natural rhythms of nature, if you remove a certain group of people, you kill off a certain group of people in a certain specific place, at some point, nature will renew that, and that has to come back into existence. So you can see those people trying to come back into those places and repopulate, but most people don't look at it from that kind of perspective. And that's why if you look at everything from strictly a financial or a systematic way, you miss it. You miss it.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a Native American in Sinners, too?
Oh,
the
we missed
beginning.
talking about them.
In the
yeah.
beginning.
In the
No.
beginning.
No,
They
we
were the
didn't.
ones who were
No.
chasing the vampire.
Yeah.
No, we did talk about
We
it.
did
Yeah, but
talk
we
about
didn't
it.
break it down.
We didn't.
No, we did, because at the end of the day, it just came down to, and then we are ending this.
It's been a while.
We're ending this
We're
episode.
done with rapid fire,
Because
so we
the
can do
only
this.
the only people that knew how to navigate in terms of not fighting, but in terms of dealing with the evil that was Remick were people that had indigenous practices, whether it was a Choctaw or whether it was Annie.
They had experience.
The sun is coming down.
Yeah, there was
Let's go, man.
Because I mean, the thing is,
Good
that
luck.
if
We've
you
seen this animal before.
We out.
We out.
because what it is that when you look at what the sun represents in the Kemetic cosmogony, what it represents is it represents the first aspect that became within the existence. So the sun in and of itself being the first aspect that became within the existence as we know it, then that's the thing that comes to then now make that evil go elsewhere.
Okay, and
end this.
so that's a great note
Yes,
to go to our proverb.
Oh my God.
There's more.
We have to end on the note. Come on, guys. We'll be fine. All right. So this is a Yoruba proverb, It says, a person who is drowning does not ask which water is clean. A person who is drowning does not ask which water is clean.
It's very deep. It's a very deep quote. This has been another episode of Gator Gates, people. We've been happy to sit here and talk about this movie with you. It's a very great movie.
Yes.
We'd love for you to see it if you haven't seen it. Sorry if we ruined it for you. And, check it out.
Go see it.
Take a look at our website.
Talk about it.
We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We
earthcenter.org.
hope you guys continue to tune in, and we'll be back with you guys next week. And yeah, a person who is drowning cannot judge what water is dirty.
All right.
We'll let you think about it.
Okay.